Chapter 174. The importance of sprites is self-evident. Even in Tulip Castle, harvesting a sprite is a festival worth celebrating. Therefore, after the birth of the thorn sprite, List quickly summoned Gort and other officials. The meeting was held in the castle. Wow, wow, wow! The thorn sprite flying around in the living room undoubtedly attracted everyone's attention. It was very bold and not afraid of people at all. With List's connivance, it could not wait to turn the castle inside and out to check its home. And this little guy was quite fierce. Thomas, who was in front of the tea, blocked its way. The little guy immediately bared its teeth at Thomas and waved its palm, seemingly ready to slap him directly. Give Thomas a big slap. Although, because Thomas dodged in time, the big slap did not happen, but it still held its head high and shouted in front of Thomas for a while, as if to say, "My territory, I am the master, despicable slave. Open your dog eyes." In fact, it was almost the same. List could feel its thoughts. The thorn sprite was indeed expressing its dissatisfaction with Thomas. Because of its contract with List, it directly regarded the castle as its home. Except for List, everyone else was unwelcome. These unwelcome people, without self-awareness, were praising the thorn sprite in the living room. It is as beautiful as the stars in the sky. I can't think of a better word to describe it. Gort danced. Its arrival just proves what I said before. That flower town is not only a place blessed by the glory of the night, but also the birthplace of the glory of the night. It's not just a little elf. It's also a little elf that brings endless wealth. Fast-growing iron thorns, fast-growing magic thorns, under its care, will become trees full of gold coins. Marcus's words were always crisp. The thorn sprite will carry the journey of Sir's glory. The praises were endless. The thorn sprite was indeed worthy of such praise. It could grow a kind of potion, a kind of wood, and its strategic value was almost as important as the sprites that grew food crops. He waved his hand. The thorny fairies flying all over the ground suddenly landed on List's shoulder and yawned. Wow, they were probably tired of playing. List glanced at the sea of flattering followers and slowly said, "There will be plenty of time to praise you in the future. Right now, I want to know how to hold a celebration. Sir, please give me the task of hosting the celebration. I'm the best at it," Gort said without hesitation. "Then tell me, how do you plan to celebrate? Every time the Tulip Castle obtains a lesser sprite, it will invite the following aristocrats to a banquet. As the Baron of the Flower Town and a descendant of the Tulip family, you can invite the aristocrats of the North Valley City to a banquet. At the same time, the relatives in the Tulip Castle, as well as Sir Baron of Falcon Town, should be invited." Gort first decided who to invite. Then he said, "In order to celebrate the thorn sprite, all the civilians in the territory should participate. I think there should be a day off." Well, forget it. There shouldn't be a holiday. Now the autumn harvest is busy, and there is a shortage of manpower for various projects. It is simply unforgivable to let the lazy serfs have a holiday. As a result, the civilians' holiday passed by in a flash. It would be good to celebrate while working. Blair heard this and added, "Perhaps we should give each serf a copper coin to show Sir Lord's care. Is it really necessary to treat the serfs like this?" Gort disagreed. He had always looked down on the civilian class. List made the final decision. It is decided that each serf will be given a copper coin, and the freedmen will have a day off. As for you, on the day of the celebration, your salary will be doubled. Double the salary, well, that's a good idea. Gort nodded and praised. "Thank you, sir, for your generosity." Carl, Rome, and the others quickly expressed their gratitude. They liked that the lord they followed was a generous lord. With a slight smile, List was satisfied with the reaction of his subordinates. He was not pretending to be generous by giving money away. The deeper meaning was that he was stimulating the circulation of goods in Flower Town through the distribution of money. As the modern soul of the 21st century, he more or less understood a lot about economic theory. After all, inflation can be felt every day, rising prices, depreciation of the RMB, and more wages, only to find that the distance from being able to afford a house is getting further and further away. It was also from these intuitive feelings that he slowly understood, cared about the country's economic policies, and knew what it meant to stimulate consumption. The purpose of stimulating consumption was not consumption, but demand. Once there was demand, it could drive the development of various industries. As the saying goes, money can only produce real value when it is in circulation. If Liszt followed the example of other lords and hoarded all the gold coins in his own warehouse, then the territory would always be in the primitive farming stage. The subjects would not have enough to eat or starve to death, let alone buy goods or start a small business, do some sideline, and so on. With money in hand, there would be a desire to spend, and the territory would be revitalized. Eventually, the primitive farming stage would be transformed into a handicraft industry and a processing industry, which would bring a steady stream of wealth. There would definitely be negative effects. With money, the subjects would be itchy. They would not be so foolishly loyal. But Liszt believed that as long as he firmly grasped the war machine, orders of chivalry, and regularly harvested a group of fat pigs that got rich first, the territory would not be able to make any waves. After all, this was a world ruled by personal strength. Wealth was only meaningful under the protection of strength. Consultant Gort, go on. As you wish, sir. Gort restrained his excitement and made himself look like he did not love money so much. The last and most important point of the celebration, sir, is that you should announce the recruitment of followers at the celebration. Liszt raised his eyebrows and pondered. Recruit followers. Yes, everyone knows the importance of the sprites to the aristocracy. Having the sprites means that Sir will go further and achieve more glory. This is a great time to recruit followers. There will always be people like me, like Marcus, like Blair, like Isaiah, who are willing to follow in your footsteps. Why celebrate the acquisition of the sprites? On the one hand, of course, it was to be happy. On the other hand, it was to show off, show the powerful strength of the Lord, and attract knight vassals. In this world, the aristocracy and the freedmen have cultivated many earth knights, but only a few can get fiefs and titles. The rest are tirelessly looking for opportunities to become aristocrats. I, who have the thorn sprite, am an opportunity for these earth knights. Liszt instantly realized that with the birth of the thorn sprite, his momentum would inevitably rise. From a baron in the countryside to a viscount guarding a city in the future. Chapter 175. The Falcon Town was in the Birch City, not far from the Coral City. Lavera, dressed in military attire, was riding her fast horse on the lawn near the castle, drilling a team of young female retainer knight. In a flash, a knight rushed over. Sir, what's the matter? The Flower Town has dispatched an emissary to the castle to convey the invitation of the Flower Town's baron. Invitation? Lavera's complexion fluctuated as she recalled the scene of her being humiliated by Dosen that day. Let him wait. We will continue with the training. In front of the Falcon Town's castle, Xavier Caodong waited quietly. He was not in a hurry. Before coming, the Sir Lord had told him that he might receive a cold reception in the Falcon Town. Liszt was well aware of his sister's temperament. Therefore, he just quietly brushed the hair of the horse he was riding. It was a young mare, only 3 years old. It was not an excellent breed, just an ordinary horse that could not go on the battlefield. However, he loved the filly very much. For a knight, horses were more important companions than wives. Perhaps when he was promoted to an Earth Knight, the Sir Lord would reward him with a new horse that could go on the battlefield. However, he would never forget the filly that grew up together with him. Puff! The filly snorted. Xavier was a little worried. He touched the filly's belly to determine if it was pregnant. Just a few days ago, the Sir Lord's black dragon had raped the filly that was grazing on the pasture. He was very distressed for his filly. It was still just a child. However, Black Dragon's status in the Flower Town was comparable to that of an aristocrat. Only Liszt had the right to stop it from doing what it wanted to do. Xavier could only stare helplessly as he watched Black Dragon rape the filly. I hope you are not pregnant. You are still too young to give birth to a foal. Xavier said softly to himself. Once the Sir Lord recruits me to the battlefield and obtains glory, I will buy you and raise you at home for my future son to ride. The average lifespan of an ordinary warhorse was 30 to 35 years. Unlike normal warhorses, such as World of Warcraft stallions and dragon horses, they could live up to 60 or even 100 years old. The most suitable age for a normal warhorse to ride and charge was from 5 to 15 years old, the golden decade. From now on, he would be Old Ma. Xavier believed that his child would be born in the near future. He already had a beloved girl. When the child grew up and could ride a horse, this little mare would still be in her golden decade. She could definitely follow the child until the child went to the battlefield and changed horses. Thinking of this, Xavier was full of energy. He firmly believed that under the leadership of the Sir Lord, he had a bright future to look forward to. The Flower Town was the birthplace of the Knight's glory, and the Sir Lord was the Son of Glory. The retainer knight who delivered the message just now looked at me and my horse with disdain in his eyes. I knew that he rode a fine horse and that Falcon Town was a wealthy town, but he knew nothing about Flower Town. The town is just the starting point of the Sir Lord's journey. He will have a city. Xavier looked at the line of knight, who came unhurriedly from the distance, and guessed that it should be the Sir Lord's sister, Lavera Tulip, and her retainer knight. Falcon Town had a tulip sprite, and Flower Town also had a thorn sprite. After a while, the line of people had arrived in front of Xavier. The leader was a woman in military attire. Xavier immediately bowed and saluted. Flower Town's messenger, Xavier, sends his greetings to Sir Baron. List sent you. What's he going to invite me for? Lavera raised her head and looked disdainfully at Xavier. I hope it is an important invitation. I am very busy and have no time to attend a boring party in the countryside. Xavier replied respectfully. Sir Lord will hold a sprite birth celebration 2 days later, on November 5th, to celebrate the birth of the contracted sprite. Sprite birth celebration? Lavera was stunned. Her face changed dramatically, and then repeated, Sprite birth celebration. He has a sprite? How is that possible? He only has a few sprite worms. How can a sprite be born? There was a strong suspicion in her tone, as well as jealousy that she herself was not aware of. It is a thorn sprite worm that has evolved into a thorn sprite. Thorn sprite. Lavera's slightly distorted face calmed down a little. It turns out that the thorn sprite worm has evolved. It is indeed necessary to hold a celebration. At least he can monopolize the hedging business of Coral Island. The sprite's thorns must be more suitable for hedges. Sir Baron, Flower Town has more than just thorns that can be used as hedges. Xavier remembered that the Sir Lord had instructed him to explain to Lavera that the Flower Town's thorns also had potions and ironwood. He couldn't help but say, there are also ironwood quality thorns and potion quality thorns, which are new varieties that have recently mutated. Ironwood, potions. Hearing these two words, Lavera's face, which had just recovered, twisted again. She wanted to say, how is that possible? This series of blows was hard for her to accept, but she was, after all, a well-educated aristocrat. Her face flickered for a moment, and she regained her composure. She replied in an indifferent tone, Tell Levis that I will attend the sprite birth celebration on time. Morris, you are responsible for receiving this night. After that, she went straight into the castle. She changed her clothes and drank a glass of milk, but she was still a little depressed. She sat in a chair and let her imagination run wild. When she was very young, she hated Liszt, or rather, she was jealous of him. He was so good-looking. Was there any justice in the world? As Liszt's talent was left behind by her, she gradually felt balanced. As a woman who had been promoted to an Earth Knight before adulthood, she had enough confidence to face Liszt's handsomeness. However, all this changed after Liszt was in theft. First, Liszt was promoted to an Earth Knight. It was a little late, but not by much. At least, it was much earlier than many people, including the Count, expected. Next, he found the black tulip magic potion, a peanut sprite worm, a handsome horse, and a flying dust dog pup. Her luck was simply explosive. The most important thing was that Liszt began to respond to her with an equal gaze. Vaguely, this gaze even had the meaning of a father looking at a good-for-nothing son. This made Lavera very uncomfortable. She always wanted to teach Liszt a lesson, and as a result, she was humiliated by Dosun's attack. The strength that she was proud of was no longer in List's eyes. A man relying on the dog's power. She gritted her teeth and cursed. But she had to admit that she could no longer get along with List the way she used to. Now, List had a thorn sprite, which was equivalent to a viscount. Although she also had a sprite, the possibility of a woman going to the battlefield was very low. In this life, it was probably barren. Fortunately, it's List, not Litten. Rubbing her face, Lavera took a deep breath, and the expression on her face finally returned to normal. She turned and shouted, "Mrs. Phoebe, Miss, I'm here. Prepare a gift for me. I want to give it to List at the celebration in 2 days." Mrs. Phoebe asked, "What specifications are you preparing?" "With the specifications for Levis's birthday." Chapter 176. Outside Coral City, in an independent castle. "Madam, you look even younger than the last time I saw you." Gort praised exaggeratedly. Madame Penelope replied happily, "No, I am old. I can hear Greg calling me from another world. I want to revisit Tahiti with him." Greg Tiles, the Count's father, List's grandfather, Tahiti's Viscount. In his hands, the family had its first tulip lesser sprite and began to collect different kinds of tulip, thus cultivating even more tulip sprites. The greater sprite Fragrant Fragrance was later cultivated, thus founding the Coral Islands tulip family. But in the end, Greg died on the battlefield. The tulip lesser sprite that he had contracted had also died. Fortunately, he only contracted that tulip lesser sprite as a souvenir. The other sprites were transferred to the adult Lee William, thus allowing the tulip family to survive. Just like now, Lee William had already transferred the sprites to Levis, while he himself was ready to sacrifice himself on the battlefield. As a future count, Levis's participation on the battlefield was like gilding the plate. An aristocratic heir had to prove to the world that he was qualified to inherit the title. Otherwise, following a lord who could not see the light, the followers who thirsted for aristocratic glory were likely to lose their morale. As a member of the Tulip family and the contractor of all the elves, his safety was definitely a priority, because once he died, the sprites and their worm stalks would also die. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Similarly, sprites could not repeatedly terminate their contracts and transfer them to others. Otherwise, their vitality would also be greatly damaged. A sprite worm could only terminate its contract once in its lifetime. In other words, it could only contract with 2 people. A lesser sprite could only terminate its contract 3 times in its lifetime. In other words, it could only contract with 4 people. A greater sprite could only terminate its contract 7 times in its lifetime. In other words, it could only contract with 8 people. A dragon sprite. This information was not known to ordinary people, as it was monopolized by greater aristocrats. Sprite worms had a lifespan of 10 years, which was very suitable for being in theft to their followers. Due to the increase in frequency, little sprites and big sprites were very suitable to be passed down in the family. However, they also had to save on contracts. Usually, the heirs would come of age and get their father's approval before they could pass it on. Madame Penelope mentioned Greg, but Gort had never seen him before. But he still went along with the topic and said, "I believe that although the old master misses you in the other world, he definitely hopes that you will continue to take care of the Tulip family's bloodline here and let it grow strong and healthy." Speaking like this, the old lady was very happy. "Yes, I must refuse him. I want to see the Count's 4 children grow up healthily. They're a group of worrying young people. In fact, you're too concerned about them, which is why you feel that they need to be worried. As members of the Tulip family's bloodline, every one of them is the cream of the crop among their peers." Gort flattered him as if he didn't need money. "The same goes for Baron List, whom I follow. The glory of a knight always watches over him." Madame Penelope sighed with emotion. "List is indeed a lucky young man. He has grown up. Lucky is not enough to describe Sir Baron. He has inherited Sir Count's excellent qualities and is destined to be an excellent and great lord. I came to see you today because Sir Baron entrusted me to invite you to the Flower Town's Sprite Birth celebration to be held the day after tomorrow. Sprite Birth celebration? Yes, a sprite. It is a thorn sprite that has evolved into a thorn sprite. It not only brings joy, but also endless wealth. We have the magic ingredient thorns and ironwood thorns. If you see it with your own eyes, you will definitely like this sprite. Its beauty can dazzle the eyes. Madame Penelope, who had experienced many ups and downs, was still shocked by this news. Is this true, Gort? List has his own sprite, and one that can cultivate magic ingredients and ironwood? It's true. What a pleasant surprise. He is indeed a boy of the tulip family. Madame Penelope laughed. I am starting to like Melissa a little. Her child has never let me down. Madame Melissa has brought the glory of the Taro family to Coral Island. Sir Baron has gathered the glory of two aristocratic families. Gort was very good at the art of flattery. Besides, when dealing with an old lady, it was enough to just praise her grandchildren. After chatting for half an hour, Gort took his leave. His next stop was Tulip Castle. Here, his art of flattery did not get a chance to be displayed. After handing over List's invitation to Madame Marie, he simply asked for the reason. The temporary owner of Tulip Castle smiled and saw him off. There was no way to judge how she thought after hearing the news. No wonder she is the Countess. This bearing is hard for me to guess. The task given to me by List cannot be completed. Gort shook his head and left Tulip Castle. List told him to take a good look at Madame Marie's expression after delivering the news. Gort understood what List wanted. However, the result was disappointing. Madame Marie did not show any surprise, shock, jealousy, or anger. Fortunately, this task was just List's bad taste. It was not mandatory. After a moment, he appeared at the home of Levis's tutor, Frank. Both were tutors and were not unfamiliar with each other. However, in the past, Gort's status was much lower. He was just a tutor for the Baron in the countryside, while Frank was the tutor for the future Count. But now it was different. After explaining the purpose of his visit, he felt that Frank finally looked at him seriously, and his words were much more polite. Advisor Gort, please convey my greetings to Baron List. On November 5th, I will take my wife and Shirley to the Flower Town's Sprite Birth celebration. Of course, on behalf of Sir Baron, I would like to express my gratitude for your coming. Then this noon, have a simple meal here. We haven't had a drink together for many years. I have a bottle of gin that I have treasured for many years. Tulip Castle did not have a free meal. Gort had planned to eat here, so he did not refuse. Wow, gin, although I am in a hurry to go back and invite other aristocrats to the celebration. But my legs probably can't walk at the moment. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Frank. At lunch, the Frank family and Gort sat as guests and hosts. At the table, the beautiful girl Shirley asked questions about List from time to time. Uncle Gort, did Baron List give the thorn sprite a name? It seems that not yet. Maybe at the celebration, he will announce the name of the thorn sprite. Can the wind peregrine falcon he raised fly now? Sorry, the wind peregrine falcon has returned to the blue sky. Sir Baron is not willing to bind its proud heart. Frank's wife was surprised. A World of Warcraft, just let it go? Isn't it too wasteful? It's worth a lot of gold coins. Chapter 177, November 5th. It was a cloudy day with a bit of a chill after autumn. Flower Town's autumn harvest has been completed. This year, with the improvement of sprite worms, the wheat harvest was quite abundant, 50% more than in previous years. The farmers in the wheat settlement had bright smiles on their faces. Taxes were reduced, harvests were increased, and there was a lot of food in store. There was no need to worry about starvation this winter. The farmers who planted oats and naked wheat were also very happy. They used manure, pond mud, plant ash, and other fertilizers, and the output was also increased by 10% or 20% than in previous years. Today, the town's serfs were still working, but they all had happy smiles on their faces. Today was the celebration of the great Sir Lord's victory over the Thorn Sprite. Everyone supported and loved the bloodline of the Tulip family, because under his leadership, Flower Town had beautiful expectations for the first time. Moreover, there was also a festival benefit of a copper coin. Praise the Sir Lord, praise the Thorn Sprite. Flower Town will be better tomorrow. With the Thorn Sprite, Sir Lord will win more glory, and the glory of the night will bless Flower Town. My nephew Philip, who is already a retainer knight of Sir Lord, will follow Sir Lord and get a lot of glory. Will Philip become an Earth Knight? Definitely. That's not necessarily true. He is just a serf, and the Earth Knight is an extravagant hope for him. Bob, you are jealous. Your son was eliminated. You are jealous of Philip. Philip and Xavier have won the favor of Sir Lord, and their future is bright. Quarreling proved that the serfs were not busy enough, and there was room for further exploitation. At this time, the servants in the castle were too busy to talk. Butler Carter's forehead was sweating, and he wiped it over and over again with a handkerchief. After successfully holding the Sea Festival banquet, he was a butler who had seen big scenes, but he was still nervous. Today, there was no count bringing food from Tulip Castle. The ingredients for the banquet had to be prepared by the castle itself. For this reason, he had been purchasing ingredients 2 days ago, buying all the ingredients available in the North Valley City. List was never stingy with the castle's expenses. Carter had the confidence to rely on the castle's financial resources to hold the banquet. Mrs. Abby, make a wok for Lucas as soon as possible. He needs a wok for 2 dishes. Tom, leave the task of fetching water to Jim. Now, bring Parker and John to mow the lawn at the castle gate. The guests will be arriving soon. Mrs. Morrison, I need your help. The layout of the restaurant is not up to standard. Master doesn't want us to use the black tulip logo, so the curtains have to be replaced with a red tulip logo brought from Tulip Castle. We and Tulip Castle are the same family. Jesse, where are you? I need you to go out and tell Renard from the bakery about the quantity and style of bread today. Here's the list I wrote. Get it to him. There will be a lot of guests coming today. Their horses will stop around here. Barton, you must make sure you take good care of them. The busy servants of the castle did not affect the owner of the castle, Baron List. He got up as usual and went to walk his dog. Blessed Curls had already flown away. His only pet was Dosen. He took a walking stick made of fast-growing iron thorns and strolled along Dosen Avenue. The tip of the walking stick pointed at both sides of Dosen Avenue, which was about to be completed. Dosen, rockthorns. Poochie. A thick rockthorn broke through the ground. The walking stick pointed to the other side, and another rockthorn appeared. He kept pointing, and Dosen kept releasing rockthorns almost instantaneously without the slightest pause. Soon, on both sides of Dosen Avenue, there were 2 rows of rockthorns like trees on the side of the road, one next to the other, looking very beautiful. The important thing was that after the celebration, the workers would break the rockthorns and pave the road. Good morning, my lord. Gort was dressed in a festive outfit with a laugher, pleated collar around his neck, making him look like a jar from the head down. Good morning, Advisor Gort. Your Dosen seems to have grown a little. It has not reached adulthood yet, and it seems that it will continue to grow. List patted Dosen on the shoulder. He was getting more and more satisfied with the flying dust dog. It was not easy for him to touch Dosen's head. List's own height, measured with a tape measure commonly used on the continent, was 1.85 meters. Dosen's length from head to tail was 4.26 meters. The shoulder height of its forelimbs was 1.41 meters, and the height of its hind limbs was 1.25 meters. In its natural state, its head was 1.97 meters. Compared with the ordinary tigers on Coral Island, Dosen was clearly 3 times bigger. Ordinary humans weighed about 130 kilograms, while Coral Island's tigers weighed about 500 kilograms. Dosen's weight had reached 1,300 kilograms. In terms of canines, Trembling Woods was worthy of being called a giant. It will continue to grow. Heavens, will it become Coral Island's largest World of Warcraft? Gort's tone was pompous, and he seemed very surprised. In fact, he was just playing along with List and showing off Dosen. Although he knew that the other party was flattering him, List was still willing to be fooled. Perhaps it is unlikely to become the largest World of Warcraft. After all, the Thunder Tuskboar's weight is several times that of Dosen. However, compared to the only purple sand crocodile, Dosun should have a 50-50 chance of fighting it. The purple sand crocodile had thick skin and a wealth of magical means. Dosun could only use rock thorns, but he was agile. Of course, they were all intermediate World of Warcraft. Without a real comparison, no one could guarantee which one was stronger. The right timing, the right place, and the right people would affect the outcome of the battle. The purple sand crocodile was just a stupid World of Warcraft, while Dosun had Flower Town as his backing. Gord exclaimed, "To be able to fight the purple sand crocodile is already a remarkable achievement." Sir Count was unable to kill the purple sand crocodile. Of course, Sir Count does not attach much importance to the purple sand crocodile, but it is enough to show the horror of intermediate World of Warcraft. Dosun will be Flower Town's strongest guardian. His appetite is quite big. Liz complained with a smile. In the past, Dosun's one meal was equivalent to his 7 meals. Now, Dosun's one meal was equivalent to his 7 days of meals. The key was that Dosun was very picky about food. He refused to eat ordinary meals. He had to eat chicken, fish, and eggs. Occasionally, he would eat tomatoes and wild fruits to supplement his vitamins. If it were a countryside aristocrat, they simply could not afford to raise Dosun. Even List was a little regretful. "I shouldn't have cut down the Thorns Ridges forest. I should have used it as Dosun's canteen to preserve the beasts in World of Warcraft." This was just a happy annoyance. After a while, Isaiah, Blair, Marcus, and the others arrived at the castle one after another. Everyone had changed into festive costumes. Frack Abbey. Even the 2 wizards had changed into tuxedos and rushed to the celebration. List took a bath and changed into his own Frack Abbey. Aristocratic costumes were very cumbersome. Under Thomas's service, it took him a quarter of an hour to put on the clothes neatly. He felt his body was a little tight. Fortunately, the weather had turned cold and he did not feel stuffy. "Master, Frack Abbey was naturally designed for aristocrats like you. It sets off your nobility and extraordinariness." Thomas praised sincerely. This was indeed the case. When the nobles of North Valley City arrived one by one, Liz stood in the middle of the crowd of nobles. They were all Frack Abbey-er. No matter how one looked at it, List had the effect of being the focus of attention. He had a handsome appearance, a tall and straight figure, a noble temperament, and a faint and gentle smile. Chapter 178. The sun was gradually approaching noon. On the lawn in front of the castle, carriages were parked one after another, as well as a large number of horses. Gort, as a greeter, warmly chatted with every aristocrat participating in the ceremony at the castle gate. Only important guests would be personally greeted by List. For example, his grandmother, Lady Penelope. "Grandmother, you've had a hard journey. I'm sorry to have made you come from so far away." List and Lady Penelope gently hugged. Tulip Castle hasn't celebrated the birth of a sprite for several years, so of course I have to come. Lady Penelope's body was still strong, dressed in a black dress and a black hat. "It's just that the journey is too long, and the carriage is going to break my old bones." "How could that be? Your body is so strong that even riding a horse is no problem." List smiled and handed Lady Penelope's arm to Mrs. Morrison. "Help the old lady upstairs to rest, and be careful of the stairs." "Master, please rest assured." Mrs. Morrison and Lady Penelope's attendant immediately helped the old lady upstairs to rest. List watched his grandmother enter the castle, then withdrew his gaze and looked at Lavera, who came with his grandmother. "Dear sister, long time no see. Thank you for coming. It hasn't been a long time." Lavera was dressed in gorgeous aristocratic attire and wore heavy makeup. She looked more beautiful than usual. She looked at List with a complicated look in her eyes. Finally, she smiled warmly and said in the tone of a normal elder sister caring for her younger brother, "Congratulations on harvesting a sprite. It will bring you countless glory, but you also have to strive forward and don't let down the glory of the Tulip family's night." She was a little surprised, but List reacted quickly and responded with a gentle smile. "I understand. Glory should be obtained by charging on the battlefield. I believe that soon I will be like my father and brother on the battlefield." With that, He gently hugged Lavera. Then he walked into the castle with Lavera, talking and laughing. In the castle's living room, many nobles were already eagerly chatting. There were many nobles on the battlefield, so most of them were ladies of nobles. When they saw Lavera, it was natural for them to socialize happily. List was a man of few words. Most of the time, he was a quiet, pretty boy, but he was always the topic of conversation. It wasn't just because he was good-looking. Once on Coral Island, he was a count's son hidden behind Levis, Lytton, and even behind Lavera. He was like a little transparent. However, in the past 6 months, even the most isolated nobles would often hear of List's name, along with news about seafood, potions, World of Warcraft, and so on. Everyone knew that List's rise could no longer be stopped. If he didn't build a good relationship now, when would he? It's a pity that my daughter is still too young. Otherwise, I would introduce her to List today and let them have some sparks. A noble lady, looking at the quiet, picturesque List with a fiery gaze, felt a surge of emotions. She wished she could replace her daughter and capture him first. List felt the noble lady's gaze, but did not respond. If he wanted to, he could probably pry off half of the nobles of Coral Island, or at least give the other party a hat. After exchanging pleasantries for half an hour, Gort welcomed new nobles. They were Frank and his wife, as well as a bright and beautiful girl. Mr. Frank, Madam, thank you for coming. List stood up and greeted them with a smile. Then his gaze fell on the girl. This is Brother List. I am Sully, little Sully. The girl's sweet smile instantly reminded List that this was the little fat boy in the memory of his predecessor. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Sure enough, the little fat boy was now a slender and elegant girl. You've changed so much that I almost didn't recognize you. Little Sully, long time no see. Sully blinked her eyes and boldly asked, Then, do you think I've become more beautiful or ugly? Of course you've become more beautiful. List responded to the girl with a slightly exaggerated tone of affirmation. The other party reminded him of the princess played by Elle Fanning in the movie The Sleeping Spell. Even their hairstyles were very similar, except that Sully's hair was a bit more brown, while the princess' hair was a bit more golden. Such an occasion was not suitable for reminiscing about the past. After exchanging greetings, Sully followed her parents, sat down, and skillfully chatted with the surrounding nobles. List joined in a few words and then had to go outside to greet the new guests. A team of knights escorted a gorgeous carriage with a red tulip flag. There was no doubt that Madame Marie and Lytton of Tulip Castle had arrived. The carriage arrived at the castle gate. List walked out of the gate, a standard aristocratic smile hanging on his face. Thank you for coming, madam. This is a festival that belongs to you. If your father was not on the battlefield, he would have come to celebrate for you in person. Madame Marie also had a standard aristocratic smile. Lytton had grown a bit taller than the last time they met. Only, he was as thin as a stick and had an ordinary appearance. In terms of appearance, the number of people on Coral Island that could match up to List could be counted on one hand. He looked at List with his acne-covered face. Big brother List, where is your sprite? Sleeping. You will see it soon. I really envy Big Brother for having his own sprite, and a thorny sprite at that. Did it evolve in the Thorns Ridge? I heard that the Thorns Ridge has a lot of thorns. Upon hearing Lytton's words, List raised his eyebrows slightly. The annexation of the Thorns Ridge could barely be regarded as a stain on List's record. After all, he had taken advantage of the Count. He didn't know if Lytton had mentioned the relationship between the Thorns Ridge and the thorny sprite unintentionally or intentionally, but it was best to cut off this association. He responded with a smile. It evolved in the meadow next to the castle. I got some new varieties of thorns from Beer Castle, which prompted the evolution of the Thorn Sprite. List casually explained. He said, The guests are all here. Madam, Lytton, please go to the second floor. The celebration banquet is about to begin. The dining hall on the second floor. The nobles gathered together and sat in the arranged seats according to their titles and statuses. They chatted happily while waiting for the wine and dishes to be served. As the banquet's host, Gort stood up and clapped his hands. When the noise gradually subsided, he began to say in an emotional tone, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to celebrate the birth of the thorny sprite with Flower Town and our barren list. Before the banquet begins, let us first invite today's protagonist, the thorny sprite. As soon as he finished speaking, the butler, Carter, walked in excitedly with a box that was pieced together from jade. He opened the box, and the sleeping thorn sprite suddenly woke up. It rubbed its eyes, fluttered its wings, and flew up and landed accurately on Liz's shoulder. It seemed that it was not fully awake, and it yawned in a very human way. Whoa! Chapter 179. Everyone, come and witness this beautiful, magical, and noble little creature. Gort cheered loudly. The appearance of the thorn sprite was not so shocking. In fact, the little fellow, who had not woken up yet, did not pay attention to these nobles at all. She just sat on Liz's shoulder and dozed off. It had just been born and was full of curiosity about everything. Last night, it went to bed very late and seemed a little listless, but this did not prevent the nobles from praising the thorn sprite with loud applause. At the same time, their eyes were cast on Liz and the sprite on his shoulder with envy, jealousy, appreciation, desire, and so on. This applause obviously disturbed the thorn sprite. It flew up at once, made a fierce expression at the applauding crowd, waved its fist, and opened its mouth and shouted, "Wow, wow, wow." This obviously did not intimidate anyone, and everyone applauded even more vigorously. The lively sprite was obviously more pleasing to the eye than the dozing sprite. It's so beautiful, beautiful little creature. I seem to see it shining with the light of gold coins. The glory of the night favors the tulip family, and Baron List has inherited the nobility of the Earl. Beautiful, as lovely as those sprites in Tulip Castle. Seeing that her intimidation did not work, and that this group of humans were still chirping, the thorn sprite was furious. It suddenly stretched out its pink little fist, opened its chubby little palm, and shouted, "Wow." But a few flashes of light were seen. It flew towards the crowd. The light quickly stained the clothes of many people, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, green sprouts appeared and actually began to grow and stretch out branches. Oh my God, it's the sprite's seeds. The thorn sprite sprinkled seeds on our clothes. The nobles hurriedly stood up and patted the sprouts on their clothes. For a moment, the whole banquet scene was in chaos. At this moment, Liz suddenly said, "Stop, little guy." In an instant, the thorn sprite flattened its mouth, reluctantly flew back, and landed on Liz's shoulder again. The sprouts on the clothes of the nobles also stopped growing. They were slapped and torn off by their hands. It didn't take long for it to be cleaned. Because she was very close to List, Madame Penelope was not sown with seeds. She looked at the elf and said with a smile, "Naughty little fellow, it reminds me of the Count's elves. A few of them are as naughty as it. I like these little elves. They are wilder and more aggressive." Lavera interjected. Some seeds were scattered on her clothes, but she quickly patted them off and did not tear her clothes. "If I had a little elf, I would be willing to be teased by it every day." A baron of North Valley City shook his collar and said, "The little sprite won't tease its master. It just likes to play. Being naughty means it's full of energy." List waited for everyone to tidy up their clothes and take their seats before apologizing with an insincere smile. "I'm sorry. It's just born, so it's still a little grumpy about strangers disturbing it. I've already restrained it. Everyone, please forget the prank just now and let's continue the banquet." The nobles expressed that they did not mind. It did not matter whether they really did not mind or not. Gort cleared his throat and continued to preside over the celebration. Everyone has seen our naughty protagonist. There is no doubt that it is a vibrant elf, a treasure bestowed by the glory of the night to Flower Town and Baron List. "So what's its name?" a noble lady suddenly asked. "What's its name?" Gort looked at List. List took over the topic. "It's called Ella. The name represents the prosperity of thorns. The prosperity of thorns begins with it. Ella, everyone savor the name. Good name. It matches the temperament of the thorn elf very well. Yes, it's a good name, but it's a bit feminine. But the elf has no gender, so any name can be used. Ella, is it written like this? Ella, Ella, it's a strange serpentine, but it's very interesting. It's a very elegant name. Everyone thought that the name was good. Even if they felt unpleasant in their hearts, they still felt good on the surface. Only Madame Penelope complained. Ella? It sounds like names like Marie and Melissa. Liszt, can you give a different name? Madame Marie, who was sitting next to her, smiled awkwardly and politely. Liszt was also very embarrassed. Melissa was his mother. This old grandmother really didn't give him any face. He could only say, Grandmother, Ella likes its name. Wow. The thorn elf, sensing the call of Liszt in his heart, shouted at him. I'm glad you like it. Madame Penelope did not force it. Perhaps she just wanted to take the opportunity to express some of her own views. The meeting of the thorn elf, Ella, set off the celebration atmosphere. It was almost time for dinner. After asking for instructions, Carter motioned for the servant to start serving wine and pour a glass of red wine or fruit wine for each guest. Liszt picked up the red wine in front of him, looked around, and slowly said, Thank you for coming to Flower Town's elf birth celebration. Everyone knows what the birth of the elf means, especially the elf with the magic potion behind it. My father and brother are already on the battlefield, continuing the glory of the tulip family. The nobles looked at the young, handsome baron. They listened carefully. Liszt's speech level was average, and there was no literary talent. He was just releasing a signal. I, Liszt Tulip, as the blood of the tulip family, am sheltered by the family, and hope and must win glory for the family. He paused. His voice increased. Flower Town is just a small town, but with the thorn elf, black tulip, flame mushroom, and fast-growing magic thorns, everything is promising. I will also recruit a group of followers to help me govern Flower Town and form a night squad to charge on the battlefield. He thought about it. He added, Flower Town has the ability to win glory from the battlefield. Do you see the flying dust dog at the gate of the castle? It has eaten the bloodline fruit and has evolved into an intermediate world of Warcraft. And it is loyal to me. It will be my most important partner on the battlefield. Intermediate world of Warcraft. This was the first time Liszt announced Dosun's bloodline level to the public. In the blink of an eye, he heard the nobles sitting around the table suck in a breath of cold air. An intermediate world of Warcraft was not as valuable as a sprite. This was a well-known truth. However, if this world of Warcraft existed in the form of a pet, then it was another matter. It was at least equivalent to half a Sky Knight, a weapon on the battlefield. The importance of such an intermediate world of Warcraft was no less than that of a sprite. Chapter 180. Dosun's bloodline brought the atmosphere of the celebration to the highest point. If the thorn sprite and the fast-growing magic thorns behind it represented Liszt's future potential, he could fight for the Viscount title, and the next generation could fight for it. With the help of Intermediate World of Warcraft, the Viscount title was no longer a potential, but a certainty that it would be worn on Liszt's head. He was even more jealous. He was even more envious. His eyes were so hot that they were about to burst into flames. Liszt suddenly felt that this situation of being stared at with strong emotions was still very enjoyable. He couldn't help but think, no wonder everyone is working tirelessly to become an aristocrat. The aristocratic system under the rule of the knight is not only a system, but also a social atmosphere. It was like China in the era of stereotyped writing, where everything was inferior and only reading was superior. In this world, everything was inferior, and only the knight was superior. At this moment, Liszt really felt that he, like the people of this world, had a desire and ambition for aristocratic glory. Of course, blind ambition is not a good thing. He spread the news that he was ready to recruit followers, and the rest was to be brewed. When his speech ended, everyone raised their glasses together, and then the banquet officially began. Delicacies were served by the serving men. Although there were not many expensive ingredients, there were chicken, fish, and eggs. There were also peanuts produced by the peanut processing workshop, all kinds of bread developed by the bakery, fruit wine, rice wine brewed by the winery, and a wide variety of seafood cooked. Under List's guidance, Mrs. Abby developed several special delicacies: green vegetable egg soup, tomato scrambled eggs, tomato egg soup, onion scrambled eggs, bean scrambled eggs, seafood scrambled eggs. Grandma, try this tomato scrambled eggs. Mrs. Abby made this dish. It's very appetizing. List motioned to Madame Penelope to taste it. Looking at the plate, which was no longer a variety of strange pies and sauces, he was very satisfied. People in China paid attention to eating, and so did he. When he first came, he was limited by his inability to cook, and nobles should not enter the kitchen, so he tried to suppress his desire for food. It was not until the seafood craze began and Raynal was encouraged to invent new bread that he gradually enlightened Mrs. Abby. At present, Mrs. Abby had successfully comprehended the two forms of Chinese cuisine, scrambled eggs and egg soup. Thus, through constant exploration, Mrs. Abby found the right ingredients for scrambled eggs and egg soup. Unable to stop, she made many kinds of scrambled eggs and egg soup. There were even a few times when List's lunch consisted of scrambled eggs and egg soup. Unfortunately, the oil and salt ratio is still lacking. It's not as delicious as the scrambled eggs back home. Eating a mouthful of tomato scrambled eggs, List recalled his life before he crossed over, and a faint sadness emerged in his heart. There was a long way to go to enlighten Mrs. Abby. Scrambled eggs were delicious, but stir-frying was not limited to scrambled eggs. In Chinese cuisine, there were stir-frying, deep-frying, stir-frying, pasting, roasting, braising, salt baking, smoking, mud roasting, boiling, stewing, boiling, steaming, shredding, honey sauce, syrup, rinse, and so on. List did not know how to cook, so he could not reproduce these cooking skills one by one. However, he still knew the basic principles of stir-frying and boiling. In addition, he was also very familiar with hot pot. This year's winter in Flower Town was inevitable to bring out hot pot. There is also tofu. Tofu must be invented. Mapo tofu is my favorite. Tofu did not exist here, only beans. Most of them were peas. There are also soybeans, but not many. These beans were hard to digest, and if one ate too much, one would fart. It was usually eaten by commoners. List had also eaten boiled beans several times, and they were indeed unpalatable. He wanted to study tofu, but although he knew how to eat tofu, he did not know how to make tofu. He only knew that there were marinated tofu and gypsum to make tofu. Roughly speaking, the beans were ground into soy milk, marinated or gypsum, and then condensed into tofu. As for why it turned into tofu, he did not understand. What was marinated, and what did it have to do with braised pig trotters? He knew about gypsum. Broken hands and feet needed to be put in a cast, but what kind of existence did gypsum exist in nature? Therefore, it was difficult to produce tofu. He could only endure it for the time being. Having scrambled eggs to eat was already a kind of progress. There was no need to always think about taking big steps, as it was easy to pull the eggs when taking big steps. Well, it is indeed delicious. It is called tomato scrambled eggs. Madame Penelope was very satisfied with the tomato scrambled eggs. List smiled. If you like, you can send your chef to learn from Mrs. Abby. The recipe is not confidential to you. Baron List, can we also send a chef to learn? An aristocrat asked. If Mrs. Abby agrees, of course. List used Mrs. Abby as a shield. It was impossible for these aristocrats to learn to cook for free. They had to exchange money for the recipe. There was no such thing as a freeloader. The fresh dishes won everyone's unanimous praise. The celebration of the birth of the sprite also had a perfect curtain call. After the luncheon was over and a short rest, the aristocrats also set off. They passed by Dawson's kennel. They couldn't help but look at Trembling Woods a few more times. Heavens, it is so big. Only an intermediate World of Warcraft can have such a body. The Flying Dust Dog is a low-level World of Warcraft, yet it is already the king of Thorn's Ridge. Now that it has become an intermediate World of Warcraft, how powerful would it be? The stone pillars on both sides of the road are its masterpiece. The night is blessed by glory. The rise of the Flower Town is coming. Incredible. I feel like I've gone crazy standing in front of an intermediate world of Warcraft. Dosen had no feelings for this group of people. He didn't even look straight at them. He just lay on the lawn, lazily basking in the sun. There was still half a bone left in his mouth. On Dosen Avenue, the carriages were pulled away one by one. Madame Penelope kissed List's forehead. You did a good job. You didn't let your father down. I still remember how much he liked you when he was a child. When he returns from the continent and sees the flower town now, he will be pleased. List smiled slightly. I will continue to work hard. He didn't quite understand the father-son relationship between the Count and his predecessor. It was probably related to him not being a father. Lavera also stepped forward and patted List on the shoulder. I hope that one day I will be proud to be List's sister. The girl was no longer Chinibu, but he was a little uncomfortable. I think that day will come. The last to leave were Frank's family. I was going to give you the first batch of black tulips profits today, but then I remembered that today is a festive day, so I will change it to tomorrow. Have Gord or someone else come to the Coral City and check the account book. I have calculated it myself. You can get 210 gold coins from this batch of potions. I will have Advisor Gord follow up on this matter. Frank thought for a moment and asked, So, what do you plan to do with the potions and the thorns? Will you continue to cooperate with Levis? I haven't thought about it yet. Let's talk about it after I have thought it over. Chapter 181. List understood what Frank meant. He wanted to create an opportunity for him and Shirley to get along. He also knew that the way Shirley looked at him was very enthusiastic. If List had been a little more debauched, he might have been able to keep Shirley in Flower Town that night. However, he was a gentleman after all. He just chatted with Shirley about his childhood, mostly Shirley talking and he listening. Because the memory of his predecessor was blurred, many details could not be remembered. After a while, Shirley said goodbye. Brother List, can I still come to Flower Town as a guest? You are very welcome. If Brother List comes to Coral City, you can come to me at any time. I am now helping my mother with some needlework at home and have a lot of free time. Okay, then I will go back first. My parents are still waiting for me in the carriage. List kept a smile on his face. Be careful on the road. Shirley turned around and walked towards the carriage. When she was about to reach the carriage, she turned her head again, wanting to see if List was looking at her. However, List walked to the side of the kennel and seemed to be playing with a huge flying dust dog. Intermediate world of Warcraft, which was supposed to be terrifying, was really like a puppy circling around him. She suddenly felt a little lost. With the help of the coachman, she got on the carriage. Shirley, how did it go with List? Frank's wife asked as the carriage was on its way. I don't know, Mom. Brother List is very polite. I can't describe it, but it seems like we are meeting for the first time. There is no sense of familiarity. After all, you haven't seen each other for several years. Now you're all grown up. Maybe. Shirley was in a cheerful mood again. Brother List is still as good-looking as when he was a child. It warms people's hearts when he smiles. Then take advantage of the opportunity. Frank's wife said with a smile, with a thorn sprite and intermediate world of Warcraft, List is the most outstanding young man on Coral Island. Well, I will. Shirley nodded graciously. Here, men chasing women and women chasing men were all the same. There was no such thing as the man taking the initiative and the woman taking the initiative. Frank had a smile on his face as he looked at his wife and daughter's relaxed smiles, but there was a hint of pity in his eyes. Having served the Tulip Castle for many years, he knew very well that the Tulip family were not ordinary nobles who knew their place. Lavera was more arrogant than the male nobles, and Levis was determined to marry the daughter of Marquis Roderick. Mary and Lytton, this mother-son duo, had never been lenient when it came to occupying Levis's resources. He used to think that List was the weakest, and the Count was disappointed with him because of this. But now List gradually showed a tough temperament. With the Thorn Sprite and the mid-level magical beast, he immediately began to recruit followers. His ambition was evident. Frank was a little worried. Would such a noble take a fancy to his daughter? He learned from Levis that on Red Crab Island, List even refused the daughter of the Viscount, let alone Shirley, who was just the daughter of a Lord Knight. Fortunately, Seeing his daughter so outstanding, he was a little relieved. Maybe Shirley can win over List. He is a young man who has never seen the world and has been holed up in Coral Island. Shirley graduated from Oxhorn College and is smart. Even if List does not succeed, there are still many aristocrats pursuing Shirley on Coral Island. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but relax. We will stay overnight in North Valley City. I have some old friends, and I have been looking for an opportunity to catch up with them. All the guests were sent away. Flower Town regained its tranquility, and the castle's servants began to clean the trampled lawn. List loosened Dosen's chain, and it immediately galloped on the horse track, chasing the horses. All the horses turned around and ran as soon as they saw Trembling Woods. Only Black Dragon was not afraid of Trembling Woods at all. It even dared to kick Dosen's hind hooves. Dosen did not dare to toss Black Dragon, because it knew that List forbade it from bullying the horses. Riding Black Dragon, he called out, "Dosen, keep up." Immediately, one man, one horse, and one dog, along with a few retainer knight, galloped towards the flower farm. The flower farm's ordinary tulip was not expanded and was only barely planted. Most of the wasteland was prepared to be planted with black tulip, striving to cover the area under the influence of tulip wormstalk with black tulip. On the wasteland, a simple building came into view. Dosen excitedly rushed towards the building, from which the barking of dogs could be heard. This was a kennel that had just been built. There were 20 female wolfhounds in the kennel. These wolfhounds were of good breed and were tall. They were good helpers in guarding the house. However, when they came to Flower Town, their fate immediately fell into a tragic situation. "Sir Lord, old Defoe greets you." The serf in charge of the kennel, after saluting, opened the gate of the kennel and let List lead Dosen inside. The kennel was very large. There were rows of kennels and iron cages, and in each iron cage was a large wolfhound. As if they had smelled Dosen, the wolfhounds, who were barking cheerfully, tucked their tails and hid in the depths of the cages. Trembling Woods, on the other hand, was jumping up and down with excitement. Old Defoe, who was very afraid of the majestic Dosen, cautiously opened the door of the first cage. Dosen rushed in impatiently, completing his 10-minute-long attack amidst the female wolfhound's mournful screams. Compared to the female wolfhounds, his size is like a Maltese on a Tibetan Mastiff. But nature, the creator, gives creatures rich creativity and diversity, as well as adaptability. The adaptability of the female wolfhounds is very strong. It can be said that Dosen has skyrocketed in everything except for his mouth. After the painful scene ended, Dosen maintained this posture for a quarter of an hour and was finally able to pull out happily, leaving the female wolfhound collapsed in the cage, and the dog's face showed a look of despair. Old Defoe remembered to feed it more food and pay attention to whether it is pregnant. Once it is pregnant, go to the castle and inform it immediately, understand? Old Defoe understands. Please rest assured, Sir Lord, Old Defoe has raised dogs for many years, and with his eyes alone, he can accurately tell which dog has a pup. Very good. Leaving the kennel, List sent Dosen to the dog prison and let Dosen and Stupid Woman be intimate. There was no change in Stupid Woman's belly, but there was no doubt that she was pregnant, which was confirmed by Old Defoe and several other professionals. Dosen, who had been released, did not embarrass Stupid Woman again, but played with her for a while. Perhaps because they were of the same species, Dosen had fun with the female wolfhounds and left without any reluctance. But for Stupid Woman, he maintained a consistent enthusiasm. List squatted beside Stupid Woman and reached out to touch her black fur. Chapter 182. It seems that Stupid Woman's fierceness has been smoothed out and she can be released to walk around. However, it is still better to be careful. Let her stay in the dog prison and give birth to the flying dust puppies. List looked at the tamed Stupid Woman. Somehow, he thought of the unruly Blessed Curls and vaguely regretted it. Perhaps he had not been soft-hearted and persisted for a while, and Blessed Curls would have surrendered. After all, Blessed Curls and Stupid Woman were just World of Warcraft. Since it was World of Warcraft, there was no dignity to speak of. In a trance, In front of him, a faint smoke emerged and transformed into a serpentine. Mission: Autumn has come, but can winter be far behind? The flower town covered in ice and snow will be isolated. Wheat, as an indispensable staple food, cannot be lacking. Please hoard 10 tons of wheat to pacify the serfs through the winter. Reward: the kindness of the serfs. It was not difficult to hoard 10 tons of wheat. This year, the wheat settlement had the wheat worms help. It was a bumper harvest. The yield per mu was close to 240 gene, and a total of 500 mu of wheat was harvested 120,000 gene, which was equivalent to 6 tons. As long as you buy 4 more tons, the task will be completed. The Thorns caravan and the Flower caravan are already buying new wheat from all over the world. List recovered and looked at the simple task, but he could not figure out why there was a reward like the kindness of the serfs. He even thought disdainfully, do I need the kindness of the serfs? They just need to work hard, build my territory, and provide me with luxury. Compared to other lords, he was already a benevolent lord when it came to his attitude towards serfs. Even if other lords beat or even kill the serfs, they had never seen the serfs resist. Therefore, in Flower Town, his position as the lord was very stable. The nobles under the knight system did not need any public opinion at all. They only needed the corresponding strength to get everything. Even if this mission reward was useless, it was useless. But for the next task, Liz still had to complete it. It was a task that was convenient. Even if there was no task, he would still hoard winter supplies. With this thought in mind, he waved his hand lightly and erased the smoke mission. His gaze returned to Stupid Woman. Because the Squire Knight was left outside the dog prison, he directly took out a piece of jerky from the space gem on his chest and fed it to Stupid Woman. When Dosen saw the jerky, he wanted to grab it, regardless of its relationship with Stupid Woman. Go away, Liz shouted at Dosen and watched as Stupid Woman gobbled up the dried meat. After eating too much jerky, Stupid Woman shook her tail at him. It looked like it was about to mature. Dogs are the friendliest to humans. Compared with Blessed Curls, Dosen and Stupid Woman are very good. In the future, adding a litter of little violent dogs would be perfect. When I go to the battlefield, I will directly release the dogs, with Dosen taking the lead. That scene is too beautiful to behold. It was as if he could already see the rows of rock thorns, how violent the output would be. After walking the dog, when he returned to the castle, Butler Carter had led the servants to tidy up the castle. The gifts sent by the guests were also accounted for one by one and stored in the castle's warehouse. The gifts given by the nobles were usually food or iron, because these two materials were in short supply, so they were the most suitable for gifts. However, the materials obtained by gifts could not make him rich. After all, in the future, when other nobles had banquets, List would also need to return the gifts. Master, do you need to check the accounts? No need. List was not a miser who counted how much money and things he had in his hands every day. He just chatted with Carter for a while, then went upstairs to the study, calmed his mind, and prepared for today's potion work. He opened the flame, mushroom magic potion, and drank it. Suddenly, flame-like magic spread out. While the magic was rushing around, he constantly ran his chi so that his body tried to expand, accommodate the magic, and then generate his own chi. He described this process as filling a cup with stones. The ordinary Earth Knight's practice was to fill the cup with small stones, but no matter how much it was filled, it would be full of gaps. The elite Earth Knight relied on constant shaking and rubbing against the stones, making the gap a little tighter. The elite Earth Knight, on the other hand, used magic potions instead of sand to fill the cup. He was now repeating this process. It wasn't difficult, but it required a constant supply of energy and patience. Once you take the magic potion, don't stop, at least not intermittently. Otherwise, the chi created by the magic potion will continue to shrink and eventually fall to the level of an ordinary Earth Knight. But you can't take it too often. You have to find the degree to which the body adapts back and forth. This was the truth that the Count told his sons in his memory. How to take the potion to take the potion well. The Count himself took the potion for 10 years to break the body's shackles and transform the mid-level qi into high-level qi. This precious experience would be the most core secret of the tulip family, and no one except the direct bloodline could disclose it. List silently refined the magic of the magic potion to impact his own qi. At the same time, List was comparing his own experience with the secret taught by the Count. He had to find a degree that was suitable for his body. The Count once said, "Everyone takes the magic potion in a different way. It is necessary to judge and master the degree according to your own body." Exceeding the degree would not only waste the potion, but also damage the body. If the degree was not reached, not only would it waste time, but it would also increase the body's resistance to the potion. Not every rich elite Earth Knight can rely on a magic potion to become a Sky Knight. Otherwise, the great aristocracy will never fall. A smart mind, a keen sense of touch, and a heart that is not afraid of difficulties are all qualities that a Sky Knight needs to have. These words, the predecessor firmly remembered in his heart, showing that there was a tiger hidden in his heart. But what the predecessor lacked most was probably a sense of understanding, so everything benefited the current List. The days of celebration passed, and life in Flower Town continued. Cart after cart of wheat transported the newly harvested wheat to the granary not far from the castle. In order to complete the so-called task of stabilizing the serfs, he asked Karl Hammerstein to lead his patrols to publicize this year's harvest. The Lord loved the people, hoarded wheat, and had no worries during the winter. The winter of previous years was a dark memory that the residents of Flower Town could not erase. This year was the most comfortable year for the residents of Flower Town. They were full of hope for the winter, not to mention List propaganda. No serf showed fear of the winter. "This year will be very good, Maggie, don't worry," Harriet, a peasant woman from Barley Town, said to the thin little girl at the table. The little girl Maggie was a serf bought from the Eagle Kingdom. She had learned serpentine from old Grandette and was not very proficient, so she was confused. "Mrs. Harriet." "What?" "Eat belly." Harriet touched Maggie's little head kindly, pointed to the bread, then pointed to the belly, and said with a smile, "Sir Lord is kind. This winter, everyone can eat their fill. We will have a very happy winter. No hunger, no World of Warcraft." She spoke and gestured, successfully making Maggie understand. Chapter 183. After lunch, Maggie was diligently responsible for cleaning up the plates. Her thin body was as busy as a little elf. "Let me do it, Maggie. Go take a nap. You have to train with Lord Rome in the afternoon. Remember to perform well in the training class." Mrs. Harriet liked little Maggie very much. She had no daughter, so she really regarded little Maggie, who was boarding at home, as her own daughter. Because Mrs. Harriet spoke too fast, Maggie could only understand a few snake words such as nap, Lord Rome, training, etc. But she was smart enough to guess what Mrs. Harriet meant. She hurriedly replied in snake text, "Lord Rome's training is easy. Maggie is happy. 3 meals. Flower Town, great." She spoke and gestured so that the communication was completed smoothly. Mrs. Harriet smiled, and her eyes were misty. Flower Town was not like this in the past. At that time, we could only eat 2 meals a day, and in winter, only 1 meal a day. It was the Lord who brought everything and made Flower Town great. Now we can eat 3 tons of rice a day. In the era of material scarcity, 2 meals a day was the mainstream for civilians, and 3 meals was the standard for aristocrats. When Maggie was in the Eagle Kingdom, she lived in the countryside and ate 2 meals a day with her family. After coming to Flower Town, it was already a great happiness to be able to eat 3 meals a day. She was still young and had not been assigned to farm work. What she needed to do every day was training classes and needlework classes. Training classes taught some punches and kicks to build up strength, while needlework classes invited serf dyers and spinners to teach printing and weaving skills. Maggie learned very seriously. This was because she knew that skills were very precious. In her hometown, learning a skill would cost a lot of money before someone would be willing to teach it. Compared with the illusory prospect of building up strength and cultivating qi, she was more willing to become a spinner. When she finished her needlework class and returned to Mrs. Harriet's house, dinner was just about to start. But compared to the past, the atmosphere at home seemed a little serious. Harriet's husband sat on the bench with a dignified expression. Mrs. Harriet's son and daughter-in-law, who had separated from the family, also rushed over. It wasn't until the bread and seafood were served that Maggie realized what day it was from Harriet's daughter-in-law's gestures. Harriet's daughter's Memorial Day. Mr. and Mrs. Harriet had had a little daughter, but she had fallen ill in the winter and had not had enough to eat, and had died 3 years ago. She was only a little older than Maggie when she died. This was also the reason why Harriet and her husband were willing to take Maggie in. The next day, Harriet and her husband even invited Monsieur Grandet of the town to their house. Through Grandet, he communicated with Maggie. Maggie, Mrs. Harriet wants to form a contract with you as mother and daughter. Maggie was caught off guard and did not know how to get back. Old Grandet said gently, "The past is the past. There is no need to think too much about it. Now that you have come to the flower town, your family is dead. Why don't you form a contract with Mrs. Harriet? It will be convenient to look after her, and they can help you redeem your serf contract and restore your status as a freeman." This was great news. Harriet and her family ran the town's general store and were well off and belonged to the well-to-do lot. If she could form a contract with them, Maggie knew that she would have a good future. But she didn't know why, but she was vaguely resistant. "Monsieur Grandet, I have relatives. I have a sister." Old Grandet frowned. He checked Maggie's identity information and did not find any relatives among the serfs. According to Maggie's own narrative, her parents were killed by mercenaries. "You have a sister? Where is she? Why didn't you say it before?" My sister left home several years ago. She said that when she learned magic, she would come back to me. My sister will come back to me. Learn magic? Was she chosen by a certain Mr. Truth and became a magic apprentice? This thought flashed by, but old Grandet did not care. Even if Maggie's sister became a mage, it was almost impossible for her to come to the Coral Island to find her sister. Besides, maybe she died in an explosion. In the mage industry, the probability of an explosion is quite high. He just thought that Maggie was a little shy and embarrassed, so he asked her to think about it for a few days. Harriet and her husband did not mention it again and continued to maintain the previous atmosphere. But Maggie could not calm down for a long time. At the same time, thousands of miles away in the Eagle Kingdom, the flames of war continued. The Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom invaded, and the Eagle Kingdom was forced to resist. The Dragon Knight wandered around to support the battlefield. On the other side, in the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom, the army of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, like locusts passing through, desperately searched the coastline and border castles, plundering all kinds of wealth and minerals. Amidst the chaos of war, a warship flying the flag of the Red Tulip family slowly approached the port. The port lighthouse also hung a red tulip flag. Needless to say, this was naturally the bridgehead occupied by the Tulip family along the coastline of the Eagle Kingdom. There were already servants of the Tulip family, joining the servants of the fleet to sort out the goods, which were all specialties of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. While fighting and robbing, at the same time trading and smuggling, both did not delay. The entire harbor was bustling with people loading, unloading, and transporting cargo, running around nonstop. "Is this the ship of the Tulip family?" In a shabby tavern on the dock, a female mercenary with a face scarf, holding a glass of wine, looked out of the window and asked. She was talking about the wind. Opposite her was a shifty-eyed guy who greedily glanced at the mercenary's bulging chest and answered wretchedly, "Of course, this dock and most of the surrounding castles have been occupied by the wave-sword Saint Lee William. The Red Tulip has become a nightmare for many nobles. Lee William's fleet has been engaged in slave trafficking. Hey, the Sapphire people are a group of serf traffickers. It would be strange if they didn't sell slaves. When will the fleet return? It depends on how fast you mercenaries can catch serfs. If you're fast, maybe you could sell a batch of serfs this month. This is for you." The mercenary flicked her finger in the air, and a shiny silver coin flew into the air and then fell on the table. She got up and left without looking back. The shifty-eyed guy reached out and pressed the silver coin, licked his lips, greedily picked it up, held it in the palm of his hand, and smiled brightly. "Sir Mercenary, if you need any more information, just come to the Old Ford Tavern to find me." Hey, why did she suddenly disappear? When he raised his head, the mercenary was no longer in the tavern. Chapter 184. I don't know how my father and brother are doing in the Eagle Kingdom, and how much profit they got this year. After practicing Fiery Dragon Drill and Fire Surge Fluctuations, List took the bow and arrows and began to practice multiple arrows. After starting his life of taking potions as an elite Earth Knight, he had been a little excited these days. He wished he could go to the battlefield and charge a few times to show his powerful strength. It was like a person suddenly making a fortune. Of course, his reason would tell him to keep a low profile, but his feelings would certainly want to show off. Wait for me to ponder the Chi's secret book. I must fight against Marcus another day, with the Red Blood Sword and Black Dragon. Even if I lack experience and my Chi operation skills are not as good as Marcus, I can still win. He was full of confidence, even if his strength was not enough. Of course, the fight must be carried out in private. In case List lost, as long as the person involved did not mention it, it would naturally not affect his image. Thinking of this, he became more immersed in his practice. He put his hand on the bowstring, and two sharp arrows flew out side by side. The Chi guided the arrows to collide quickly in the air, slightly changing their flight trajectory and shooting straight at two targets that were 10 meters away. Bang, bang. Two crisp sounds. List looked up. The arrows that were 100 meters away had completely pierced into the center of the thick target. One arrow for one target, extremely accurate. His eyesight had been greatly improved after using magic eyes for a long time. With multiple arrows, he could easily hit where he pointed. Not to mention shooting a target 100 steps away, even shooting a target 1,000 steps away was not difficult. However, because the target was too far away, the Chi attached to the arrow would dissipate in midair, and he could only rely on the kinetic energy of the arrow itself to fly. The attack power and trajectory changes will be greatly reduced. Many Earth Knights practice multiple arrows, but there are not many talented archers. Marcus is one, but I am even more talented. In Flower Town, List liked to compare with Marcus to estimate his strength. With this double arrow alone, my realm is definitely higher than Marcus. Sweating profusely, he continued to practice multiple arrows. He had yet to master the ultimate profound multiple phantom arrow, but he had already mastered the most basic double arrow. It was spinning. From afar came the sound of a caravan of carriages. The team transporting the newly purchased wheat had already passed the castle and was heading straight for the granary. Officials had already led a large number of serfs who were waiting for work to begin transporting wheat and piling it up in the granary. Everyone had a smile on their faces. Although the food hoarded in the castle was the Sir Lord's personal storage, the serfs could naturally benefit from the food in the castle. At the very least, the Sir Lord would no longer collect the serfs' winter food. In the past, the Flower Town's tax knight was like a vampire at the end of autumn, itching to collect all the serfs' food. The caravan moved all the wheat into the warehouse. It should be 100 tons of wheat, right? Lys had just finished practicing multiple arrows. When he saw the merchant group return, he had a thought and summoned a smoke quest on his horse. Complete the task and reward the kindness of the Serf Maggie. The kindness of Serf Maggie? Listening to the name, it was a female serf. List was confused about this and directly said to the valet Thomas behind him, "You go and inquire if there is a serf named Maggie. Don't make a big fuss, just inquire about her situation." Thomas responded and left. List continued to guess the content of the quest reward as he walked towards the castle. What does the kindness of a serf mean? Is there a problem with this serf? Or is there any talent for me to discover? The name is female. It is a female serf. Or he suddenly came up with an idea. For a moment, it was hard to contain his excitement. Could it be that the smoke quest saw that I was very attentive to the secretary these days? So it told me that there is a beautiful female serf in Flower Town to be my secretary? Such an idea felt quite unreliable. But what if it was true? Fortunately, he was still rational. He calmed himself down a little and saw the new mission. Quest. The sailors have been trained for a long time. The captain is ambitious, and the calm pearl is about to be produced. The flower town's only ship, the flower, ushered in a long voyage. The ambitious goal of the Sea of Stars. Please personally complete the first voyage of the flower. Reward: dragon horses. The quest reward was not surprising. Black Horse Island was judged to be inhabited by dragon horses. However, the content of the mission made List a little unhappy. They actually want me to complete the first voyage personally. Costo and his group of sailors, even with the help of the Calm Pearl, are in danger at sea. It is too irresponsible to let me take the risk of the smoke quest. His original intention was to let Marcus and the others go to Black Horse Island to explore. After confirming that it was safe to sail and land safely on the island, he would set off. After thinking about it, he was relieved. In fact, I don't have to go. My subordinates will find the dragon horses and receive the reward in advance. The quest will also change, but I still have to go and prepare before going to sea. Reducing the risk factor should not be a problem. The group of refugees on Little Kerchief Island, under the command of Costo, could drift to Coral Island thousands of miles away. Coral Island and Black Horse Island are only separated by the width of the Taiwan Strait, and with a group of trained sailors, it should not be difficult to navigate. Now that it has been decided, List no longer hesitated and quickly found Costo. Captain Costo, I'm going to accompany you to Black Horse Island. During this time, you and my retainer knight should pay attention to cooperation. Please rest assured, sir, Costo will definitely protect the safety of a lord. Expressing his attitude, Costo asked, Sir, I don't know when the Calm Pearl will be made. No more than 3 days at the latest. Then please let your retainer knight come to the flowers to train the next 3 days to ensure that they can protect the safety of a lord at the first moment when they are in danger. Yes, Liz suddenly thought, I intend to let Dosen go to sea with me. What do you think? Costo thought carefully and said, Dosen is a land world of Warcraft. He will definitely be seasick for the first time. Even if he trains continuously for 3 days, he may not be able to overcome seasickness. Let's see if Dosen will get seasick. He had never thought of sailing to Black Horse Island on his own, let alone with Dosen. But Dosen will definitely follow him to the battlefield in the future, and he is the most suitable bodyguard. Therefore, sailing together in the future is essential, and it is reasonable to train in advance to prevent seasickness. It is not indecisive, so the next day, Dosen was led to the flowers by List. Dosen, who got on the ship, was obviously too curious and jumped on the deck. Every time he jumped, he could feel the flowers trembling on the sea. A behemoth weighing more than a ton was so powerful. However, Dosen was afraid of the water and did not dare to approach the side of the ship. List dragged it and approached the side of the ship. It did not move, and its eyes did not dare to look down at the sea from the side of the ship, especially when the flowers left the simple dock formed by several pieces of wood tied together. Riding the wind and waves on the sea, Dosen's originally active temperament suddenly withered, and it lay on the deck sullenly, not daring to move. Chapter 185. This chapter is a reward for the leader Q Blockhead, 1 chapter for the time being, and 10 chapters in the future. Swaying left and right, swaying 3 times with 1 step. This was a portrayal of Dosen after getting off the ship. His eyes were cloudy, and he almost vomited. Even if it's intermediate World of Warcraft, I will still get seasick, and I will get very seasick. List was helpless about this. After all, World of Warcraft lived on land. The sailing ship swayed, and even he, who had just crossed over, fainted once when he first went out to sea. However, World of Warcraft's powerful resilience was soon reflected. By the time he took the dizzy Dosen and slowly returned to the castle, Dosen's seasickness symptoms had significantly subsided. His legs were no longer swaying, his vision was no longer blurred, and his voice was louder. Except for his spirit, everything else had recovered. Whether he can overcome seasickness or not, I will take Dosen with me when I go out the day after tomorrow. The flower speed was 5 knots, and it would take 14 hours to reach Black Horse Island, and it would take at least an hour or two to find a place to dock. So after the first voyage, they must camp on Black Horse Island. Without Dosen, List has no sense of security. In case there is intermediate world of Warcraft on Black Horse Island, the recovered Dosen can at least resist 1 or 2. In addition, he and Marcus, 2 elite Earth Knights, will assist from the side. Dosen has become his confidence, walking on the soon-to-be-completed Dosen Avenue. Behind him came the sound of hooves. It was Thomas, who inquired about the serf Maggie, who returned with a thick bast paper to record her identity. Master, I have inquired about Maggie's identity. She is a new Eagle Kingdom serf who joined Flower Town. She has no relatives and no surname. She is currently boarding with a grocery store owner. Liz took the thick bast paper and keenly grasped the key. Boarding? Is she a child? Yes, sir. Maggie is just 9 years old this year. On the thick bast paper, it was also clearly written, Maggie, 9 years old, no relatives among serfs, lodged in the grocery store owner's home, currently receiving training in the girls' group, and participating in the needlework class organized by the administrative office. After reading the records, he casually passed the thick bast paper to Thomas, returned it to the administrative office. He didn't say anything more. His mood was as listless as Trembling Woods. He thought that the smoke mission was very considerate and prepared to reward him with a beautiful female secretary. He even thought about what kind of name to recruit the secretary. He didn't expect that it was just a 9-year-old girl. What is the meaning of this? You want me to raise it? Liz tied Dosen into the kennel and walked into the castle alone. He went straight to the study. The study was his place to think. The smoke mission won't be that simple. After all, it's a product of a smoke dragon, and it involves fate. There must be something else about Maggie. The invisible dragon chain mission, the Thorns Worm chain mission, many seemingly messy missions and rewards often had some kind of connection. Therefore, he naturally wouldn't think that this 9-year-old serf, Maggie, was a random reward from the smoke mission. There is too little information. Continue to pay attention to Maggie. By the way, Mrs. Morrison complained to me that the workload of the maids in the castle is too heavy, especially with banquets every day, and that more maids need to be recruited. Liz's thoughts flashed. Maybe I can recruit Maggie as a maid and train her from a young age? No matter what involvement she has, there will always be a day when it will be revealed. Even if there is no involvement, she can be trained as a secretary candidate. List shook the bell. He called Carter and Mawson over. Sir, what can I do for you? Mrs. Morrison told me that there are not enough female servants in the castle. Are there enough male servants? Carter and Mawson looked at each other and said, the daily life of the castle can barely be maintained by the servants, but for a grand festival like the birth of the sprites, there is a shortage of manpower. And sir, the castle has no name now. We all know that you will give it a name sooner or later. Mrs. Morrison said, a castle with a name needs a large number of servants to maintain, especially serious and skilled servants. It is difficult for us to recruit them in a short period of time. It is best to train them ourselves. Yes, we should train a group of servants ourselves. Carter smiled, his face full of gratification. Sir, you need more people to serve you. The glory belongs to you. List lived alone in the castle. At present, there were 15 servants serving him, and the 2 stewards were still complaining about the lack of manpower. In the past, List couldn't imagine what kind of luxurious life it would be to have 15 people taking care of one. Now, however, he agreed with the 2 stewards. It is true that we should train our own group of servants. Now Flower Town is not short of food and clothing, and the castle is not short of gold coins and income. So the training of servants will be left to Mr. Carter and Mrs. Morrison. The first batch tentatively set 20 internship places. Subsequently, he said euphemistically, I ran into a little girl named Maggie. She is very pitiful and polite. If she wants, Mrs. Morrison, give her an internship place. As you wish, sir. Dinner every day. Liz told everyone that he was going to go with the flower to see. The flower will probably stay on Black Horse Island for a few days to look for the dragon horses. Sir, I hope to go with you to Black Horse Island. Gort immediately expressed his loyalty. List directly refused. This is just to explore the way. When it is confirmed that Black Horse Island is going to be developed, I will send you there to arrange things for me if Consultant Gort doesn't want to go. I am at your service at any time. Has Flower Town been developing smoothly these 2 days? Very smoothly. It is expected that before the first winter snow comes, Flower Town will finish all the construction of roads and houses. This winter, I believe the serfs will have a comfortable winter. Have you prepared winter clothes and blankets? The administrative office is not ready, but the caravans coming and going to Flower Town have begun to sell quilts and cotton-padded clothes. I went to the market to check. A cotton-padded coat sells for 12 copper coins. As long as the serfs are not lazy, they can afford it. A quilt costs 25 copper coins, and the serf families should be able to buy 2. He finished and added, "You don't have to worry that these serfs will freeze to death. They have thick skin and thick flesh. As long as you give them something to eat, they won't freeze to death even if they are thrown into a snow pit." But List didn't think so. Consulting Gort, do you know how much it cost me to buy a serf? Well, 20 silver coins. Since you know it's 20 silver coins, do you now see them as 20 silver coins? Are they worth a few dozen copper coins or 20 silver coins? List asked in a bad tone. He didn't care if Gort looked down on the serfs or not. Everyone was equal. It was a lie to deceive children. But he must pay attention to the value of the serfs and the value they can create, so he directly reprimanded. This winter, for every serf that freezes to death, 20 silver coins will be deducted from your salary. Chapter 186. This chapter is, you can only read with your heart if you spend money. Wheat Settlement. Glanny's Workshop. Glanny, who hadn't taken a bath for 5 days, held a black sphere the size of a basketball with his dyed hands. His eyes were bloodshot, but his gaze was hot, as if it could burn people. Success. I, Glanny, have successfully made a magic equipment more precious than gemstone equipment. Glanny raised the calm pearl high, as if a scientist had created Frankenstein. Its magic power covers a range of 182 meters. Within this range, all the wind is silenced by the water attribute magic. It should be called the Eye of the Storm. No, the Lord of the Storm. Then the next moment, List, who was waiting impatiently, snatched the calm pearl. Mr. Glanny, thank you very much for completing the calm pearl for me. I will personally experiment with its effects. You can take a good bath and sleep, and when you wake up, I will hold a dinner party for you in the castle. After that, he asked Thomas to hand over a handkerchief and carefully wiped the greasy calm pearl. Glanny looked at the calm pearl reluctantly, his tone full of regret. It is one step away from being comparable to the little elven soldier. If it weren't for your reluctance to part with a winged peregrine falcon, I would have made it into the top magic equipment. It's a pity that you are too short-sighted. List really wanted to punch him and shut him up, but he still told Charlie with a very noble temperament, "Take care of your teacher, and remember to remind him to attend the banquet tonight." Understood, Lord Baron. Elkson had finished making the magic potion and returned to Coral City. The candidate for the Calm Pearl experiment fell on Marcus, who had wind attribute chi. Are you ready? Ready. Then let's begin, Teacher Marcus. Yes, my lord. The coverage of the sea-calming divine pearl could not stop Marcus from releasing his chi. However, after he used his chi move, the power rapidly declined, and the wind attribute chi was dispersed less than a meter away from his body. When Marcus used multiple arrows, the chi attached to the arrows dissipated even faster. Very troublesome magic equipment. Within the range of the calm pearl, I feel that I can only use 10% of my strength at most. The suppression effect is very strong, Marcus said with a frown. He didn't like this feeling. List smiled and analyzed. If you get close, it won't hinder you from exerting your strength. It can only weaken the magic and aura of long-range wind attribute. Half of my strength is in multiple arrows. It's the same as crippling my multiple arrows. Karl Hammerstein, who participated in the experiment, asked curiously, "Your Excellency, Mr. Marcus, why can the water-attributed sea-calming pearls silence the wind-attributed mana? I've always felt that water magic power should restrain fire magic power. The control of magic is a complicated field of magic." Lys was in a good mood and explained to Karl. In fact, it was all Glanny's explanation, and he didn't really understand it himself, but it didn't prevent him from relaying the knowledge with his good memory. In reality, water can extinguish fire, and water magic power can extinguish fire magic power. All magic power originates from the magic power of chaos, and it just shows various different attributes. As long as the magic structure is pried open, the restraining effect can be achieved. Then, Karl's eyes were full of confusion, but on the surface, he nodded as if he understood. "I see." Then, the experiment continued. After 3 hours of exploration, Lys had completely figured out the silence attribute of the sea-calming pearl. The wind within a range of 182 meters, including the wind-attributed mana, was directly silenced. But the further the distance, the greater the attenuation, and at the edge of the range, the effect of the silence was much weaker. Using Marcus as a reference, his chi could be 3 meters away from his body at the edge, but not even half a meter away from the center. Whether he used the ultimate meaning or an ordinary move, he would be silenced by the sea-calming pearl. There were magic runes on the surface of the black pearl. As long as the chi was used to touch the magic runes, it could produce a confinement effect, confining the silence effect of the sea-calming pearl. When used, the magic runes were touched again, and the confinement effect was lifted. When the sea-calming pearl was placed in a pond near the castle, the water, which had been wrinkled under the breeze, quickly calmed down, and no waves could be seen. It was just that Karl stirred hard with his longsword, causing the surface of the pond to fluctuate again. It can't silence the movement of the water, so when there is a storm, sailing will still be dangerous. Marcus analyzed. Lys nodded. "Yes, but if the impact of the storm is eliminated, we can concentrate on dealing with the waves and reduce the danger of the ship capsizing." All in all, he was satisfied with the effect of the sea-calming pearl. Today's time has been missed. Tomorrow morning, we will set off for Black Horse Island with the sea-calming pearl. Early the next morning, Glanny Truth, with his apprentice Charlie, met up with the flower caravan early in the morning, ready to leave Flower Town. "I hope we will have the opportunity to work together again, Mr. Glanny." Lys solemnly sent Glanny to the mainland. He did not like Glanny's attitude, but he appreciated the other's knowledge. He did tell him a lot about magic without concealing anything. "I also hope to work together again, Baron List." Glanny's hair was washed, his clothes were washed, and he regained his mage temperament. He put on his hood to hide the expression on his face. Then, "I hope that the next time we meet, you have already obtained the noble title you want." Tick-tock. The carriage started. The caravan left. The voyage was about to begin. Butler Carter exclaimed, "Thomas, remember to take care of the master's daily life. Don't slack off." Thomas always behaved humbly in front of List. "Mr. Carter, please rest assured that I will do my job with all my heart." Carter turned to List and bowed deeply. "Master, I hope you will return safely." "I will, Mr. Carter." Under the watchful eyes of the servants, List held Dosen's hand and set off with Marcus, Thomas, and the retainer knight to the dock. The sky was not yet bright, but a red line appeared on the white skyline. When they arrived at the dock, they found that Gort, Blair, and the others had been waiting there for a long time. Costo, with the sailors, was busy making the final preparations for the voyage. There was no unnecessary talk. List boarded the Flower with the retainer knight. Costo asked for instructions and arranged the sailors to take their positions. A moment later, the red tulip flag representing the tulip family was hung. The Flower, waved by Gort and other officials, slowly left the dock by oars. It sailed towards the depths of the Azure Sea. When the ship had entered the deep waters, Captain Costo immediately shouted, "Raise the sails!" Crash! Chapter 187. This chapter is Snow Breaks 1,000 Blades. My lord, Dosin is very adaptable. It is no longer afraid of the shaking of the ship and can walk freely on the deck. At the bow, Marcus looked at Dosin, his eyes shining. It was a look of longing. Intermediate world of Warcraft, combined with the Thorn Sprite, will undoubtedly help List ascend to the title of Viscount. As for him, if he followed List and charged into battle, the title of Chevalier would also be at his fingertips. The aristocratic aspirations of several generations of his family are pressing on Marcus, and Marcus is counting on List. List relies on Dosin and Ella. List did not answer, but tentatively pointed to the sea and ordered, "Dosin, rock thorns." Dosin opened his mouth and spat out. A rock pillar that was not very thick suddenly emerged from the sea, and as soon as it emerged, it sank into the sea and disappeared. Woof woof. Dosin was puzzled by his rock thorns, which were instantly submerged. List touched his big head and turned to Marcus. Making something out of nothing. Although the rock thorns are much smaller than on land due to environmental constraints, the changes in the nature of magic it represents are still awe-inspiring. I now believe a little in Glanny's triangle theory. Spirit, magic, matter, all three can be converted. Deep in his heart, he was not interested in this theory, but there was no other better theory to explain it. However, Marcus apparently did not have the spirit of exploration. Dragons can produce metals and gems, and elves can produce plants. This is the law of nature. Dosin can make rocks, just as a mage can rub fireballs. I think they belong to nature. So do you think alchemists exist? Alchemists? Marcus thought for a moment and said in a serious tone, "I don't know, but I don't want them to exist. All the glory of a knight can be obtained from the charge. Relying on alchemy without sowing will only make us fall." List sighed. Marcus was obviously not a suitable person to communicate with. His mind was filled with the glory of a knight and the glory of a noble. I think alchemy does exist. Turning stone into gold sounds much simpler than creating something out of nothing. He said simply, having lost interest in chatting. He just looked at the blue waves of the sea and let his imagination run wild. All the materials used to forge gold coins come from the golden dragon, which produces gold. If someone grasps the secret of the gold dragon's infection with gold, they might be able to master alchemy. Thinking of this, he remembered the 2 boxes of books he had collected when he salvaged the shipwrecked treasure. Among them was a book on alchemy. Unfortunately, after touching it, the book immediately turned into ashes. This was his greatest regret. Occasionally thinking about it, he would feel distressed. Sometimes he would think if he put the book in the gem space and read it again, would it be preserved? The gem space could make matter still, and perhaps the pages could be opened. Thinking about it carefully, it was unlikely. If a candle was put in, the flame would be crooked after touching it. If a book was put in, it would be broken after touching it. Perhaps the decayed pages could be scraped away layer by layer, and part of the content could be obtained. Unfortunately, he didn't think of it at the time. Suppressing his regret for alchemy, his thoughts jumped to the keel bone collected in the gem space. This dragon bone originated from a shipwreck. Because there was no shipbuilder, it could not be inlaid on the flower, so it could not play its role in driving away sea monsters. When I have money, I will build a brand new, epic-making schooner, and then I will inlay this keel bone in it. The sun had risen. The sea breeze was blowing with a force of 3 or 4. It happened to be a northwest wind, allowing the flower to sail with the wind, and the speed had exceeded 5 knots. After everything was stable, Costo came out of the captain's room and reported a list. The current speed of the ship is 5.5 knots. At this rate, the flower will reach Black Horse Island in 13 hours. You are an expert in this area. You will be responsible for everything and ensure safe navigation. If there is a storm, remember to use the calm pearl. I'm going to rest now. Report to me at any time. The flower was only a medium-sized merchant ship. Therefore, the guest room was not spacious. Thomas put the fruit he brought on the table and left to see Dosin. Only List was left in the room. He took out the flame, mushroom magic potion from the gem space and began today's potion task. As the potion entered his stomach, the scorching magic spread, hitting his limbs. He silently ran his qi, guiding this magic to evenly impact every part of his body. Compared to the people of this world, he had a clearer understanding of the structure of the body, including the meridians that could accommodate the flow of qi. In China's ancient culture, it has always been about meridians. Liszt had studied meridians before, but on Earth, meridians weren't in proven existence. Here, the meridians were real and were the routes and channels for the flow of qi. Magic was stimulated, qi was generated, and the total amount of qi in the body increased little by little. Everything was so smooth that Liszt was addicted to it. He couldn't help but sigh. I am such a genius. According to the experience taught by the Count and Levis's verification, the elite Earth Knight will often feel a variety of physical discomfort in the early stages of taking the potion. This is the aftereffect of the magic potion's impact on the body. It takes a long time to break in and find a balance. He suddenly opened his eyes and said to himself, "Why don't I feel this way?" The effect of taking the flame mushroom magic potion is immediate, but there is no physical discomfort at all. Soon, he inferred why his practice was so smooth. I understand the meridian theory of traditional Chinese medicine. Using it as a reference, it is easier to grasp the details of the flow of qi in the meridians and find a balance. These two meridian theories do have many similarities. I know the structure of the body. The way the qi is operated is adjusted according to the structure of the body at any time. Also, I am afraid that my willpower will be stronger than that of an ordinary knight. After all, I'm a transmigrator. My soul absorbed the soul of my predecessor and even had an unclear relationship with the smoke dragon. Therefore, my control of qi is like an arm and a finger, without the slightest obstruction or stagnation. Knowledge is power. The Count, Levis, and others may only know the structure of their own bodies limited to the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys, bones, muscles, and fat. The study of a microscopic level in this world does not exist at all. They don't even know what bacteria and cells are, let alone atoms and electrons. No one cares about medicine or physics. They all focus on qi and magic. It can't be said that there are none. Mages can barely be regarded as a variant of scientists, but the direction of research is on magic. Liszt smiled slightly. And I, with the superposition of the knowledge of two worlds, plus a good bloodline talent, it is not an exaggeration to call me a genius. It was as if he saw the sky night waving to him. After being proud, with the rationality of an adult, he quickly settled down and continued to practice qi. Chapter 188. Sailing was very boring. Liszt had to maintain a noble demeanor, and it was impossible to get along with sailors or knight retainers. So after lunch, he took a nap and continued to practice qi in the afternoon. This practice lasted the whole afternoon. The flowers arrived at the location marked on the nautical chart at about 1:30 in the afternoon, but no trace of Black Horse Island was found, so they had to continue searching at sea. It took nearly 3 hours to find the exact location of Black Horse Island. This nautical chart is off by a full 10 kilometers. Those mice have learned navigation knowledge from dogs. Costo gritted his teeth and roared angrily. If it wasn't for good luck, they might not have found Black Horse Island until late at night. Don't complain. It's lucky to find Black Horse Island. Liszt was very open and even a little bit unsatisfied. He was getting more and more fond of the feeling of taking potions. Now we are looking for a place to dock. Yes, my lord, Black Horse Island is an undeveloped island after all. We need to find a suitable landing place. The outline of Black Horse Island is much larger than I thought, maybe the size of Beer Island. This area is sandy, and it is difficult to dock. He pointed out the window to the island horizon. Is it as big as Beer Island? It's just my visual estimation, but it shouldn't be too far off. This inference made Liszt very happy. The size of Beer Island was just right for a viscount's fief. Too big would be cut off and shared with other nobles. Too small would be a loss. Not too big and not too small was just right. Half a circle. When the sun had begun to fall toward the sea level, they finally found a suitable landing place. The flowers slowly approached, anchored, and lowered the wooden boat. Except for a few sailors who were responsible for looking after the flowers, the rest of the people went ashore in wooden boats. The shore was rocky, similar to the docks of Flower Town. As far as the eye could see, the vegetation on the island was not lush, only a few sparse trees in the distance. There were even more weeds. There were some deer in the weeds in the distance, watching List and his party vigilantly, especially looking at the tall and mighty Dosin. They couldn't sense Dosin's intermediate world of Warcraft from afar, but they could tell that Dosin wasn't someone to be trifled with. Teacher Marcus, let's explore along the coastline first. It's only about an hour before nightfall. We'll come back when it's dark and spend the night on the flower. List instructed. Yes, they didn't bring any horses, so everyone was walking. Only List didn't walk because he could ride Dosin. Dosin's body was huge, so riding on it was more comfortable than riding on a horse. Many knight, especially the powerful knight, were no longer limited to riding horses. They had switched to various powerful dragon-type beasts in World of Warcraft. For example, Stephanie Vulture, the wielder of the Magic Eye Aura's secret skill, rode a World of Warcraft's Vulture and traveled the sky. The Sky Knight's individual combat power was above that of Knight's charge, so the mount highlighted individual combat power. Ordinary Knight relied on charging side by side to form a powerful torrent of chi, so the mount highlighted the standard. Horses were the most suitable. Riding a dog wasn't very nice, but riding on Dosin's back, List didn't look out of place. On the contrary, having an intermediate World of Warcraft as a mount would make everyone envious and raise their image. List grabbed Dosin's black fur and held his body in place. List's mind was empty for a while. Taking advantage of a moment's gap, he called out the smoke quest. The smoke condensed and formed serpentines. Quest completed. Reward, dragon horses. There is no doubt that after the flower docked, the voyage to sea was completed, and there was no need to wait for the return voyage to be considered complete. After a while, the smoke changed. A new quest was issued. Quest, you have set foot on a new land. As a lord who takes pioneering as his duty, how can you let Black Horse Island be abandoned and not manage it? Please establish a temporary stronghold on Black Horse Island and settle 100 serfs. Reward, a few decaying bones. Temporary stronghold, a few decaying bones. List quickly thought of a previous smoke quest, a quest about ghosts, and the reward was a broken bone. It was eventually determined to be a keel made from the bones of a high-level dragon species in World of Warcraft. So what do these decaying bones look like? It was not easy to guess, so he didn't think about it. 4 smoke quests. Sometimes List becomes very lazy, because as long as he can complete the quest, the reward will always come to him through coincidence. Establishing a temporary stronghold is a planned quest. The team walked for only a few miles. They found that the rocky coast had disappeared and was replaced by a sandy beach. The location where the ship stopped is probably at the junction of east and west. The east side of Black Horse Island is mostly sandy, and the west side is mostly rocky cliffs. Costo often goes to sea and has been to many islands, so he can infer the overall situation of the island from the details of the island. Look at the center of the island. There are no undulating mountains, more gentle slopes. He narrowed his eyes, took a closer look at the distance, and added, "Sir, I found that Black Horse Island is very round." Very round? Yes, the topography of the island is coherent, at least on our side. I don't know about the opposite side. Maybe we can sail again tomorrow, circle the island, and thoroughly observe the shape of Black Horse Island. List looked up at the sunset in the sky and said, "Then wait until tomorrow. The situation is unclear now. Let's go back to the flowers first." Nothing happened that night, and nothing happened either. List was not very used to sleeping on the ship. The sound of the waves, mixed with the snoring of the sailors and the Squire Knight in the cabin, made it difficult for him to sleep. Trembling Woods was guarding outside his door. Dogs also snore, so it is not surprising that Dosun snores like blowing bubbles. List himself never snores and likes a very quiet environment when sleeping. Unable to sleep, he simply sat up, took out a crystal lamp, and put it on the table. He bought the crystal lamp from Glanny, which is very convenient to carry and use, equivalent to a flashlight. With light, he continued to take things out of the gem space. A red blood sword, worn on his waist during the day, and put into the gem space at night. A bow, arrows, a set of fine steel knight equipment, and 3 fine steel knight spears for emergencies. Mithril, or crystals, and jade, neatly stacked. There are also black pearls, keel bones, binoculars, floating bottles, and smoke grass. And a lot of food, including a lot of milk, eggs, roast meat, vegetables, fruits, bread, and various seasonings. The gem space is a static substance and will not deteriorate, and food can be stored as long as he wants. With these materials, it is not a problem to throw him on a deserted island and live a happy life for a few months. He even put a few pieces of flower soap in it. There are also 30 flame, mushroom magic potions made by Elk Sun, which are also in the gem space. It's not easy to save up a little bit, but I have a rich family. Satisfied with the materials, he rearranged them, put the space gem close to his body, lay in bed, and counted sheep. Chapter 189. After circling around the island, as Costo had speculated, Black Horse Island was a non-standard oval island. There was no natural shelter, and the most suitable place to build a harbor was the rock pier where they had anchored last night. However, it was difficult to berth large ships, and the pier was not deep enough. Even medium-sized merchant ships like the Flowers seemed a bit difficult. When the sun began to release heat, the crowd gradually went deeper into the hinterland of Black Horse Island to look for the dragon horses. There were few trees on the island, and the undulating mountains were not large, so the field of vision was wide, and they could see far away. Marcus kept using his telescope along the way to look for traces of the horses, and it didn't take much effort to find what he wanted. "Sir, this is horse dung. The dragon horses are nearby." When he bent down and turned over a small black ball in the grass with a stick, he said excitedly. The knight's familiarity with horse dung was definitely more than the few moles on his wife's body. List was no stranger to horse dung. He raised his head and looked at the gentle hill in front of him. "It should be on the opposite side of the hill. Let's go around." Dosun took the lead, carrying List and taking small steps. Marcus and the others had no mounts, so they could only trot. After a while, the group successfully crossed the weeds and came to the other side of the hill. Without binoculars, they could see that on the hillside in the distance, a group of black wild horses was leisurely eating grass, very comfortable. "Dragon horses? They're all black horses. They should be dragon horses. Don't be in a hurry. First observe carefully and count how many horses there are." List calmly took out his binoculars and looked at the dragon horses. In the camera, the steeds, which were not inferior to the castle's black dragon, didn't seem to notice their party and only cared about eating grass and frolicking. 1, 2, 3, a total of 37 black horses. It was a very small group of horses, but to List, it was a huge gain. That was because every dark horse here could be a dragon stallion. After Marcus finished counting the horses, he could not suppress his excitement. "My lord, there are a total of 37 horses. There are 9 foals, and the remaining 28 horses are enough to equip 2 knight teams. Teacher Marcus, you can have one of them now." "Thank you, my lord." Marcus wished he could immediately catch a black horse and tame it, but in order to not alarm the horses, he still said, "There must be a horse king among these wild horses. Sir, you should personally tame the horse king, so that the remaining black dragon won't run away." Horse king was a common name. Among a herd of wild horses, there would definitely be a leader. It was usually the bravest stallion that led and protected the herd. Once the Horse King was tamed, the other horses would continue to follow the Horse King's lead. This meant that the entire herd of horses would be tamed. "Can you confirm which one is the Horse King?" List was eager to give it a try. The Horse King naturally belonged to him. Only the Lord had the right to ride the Horse King. "It's very simple. We will intimidate the herd, and the one leading it will be the Horse King. The task of intimidating was directly given to Dosen. As soon as Dosen appeared, the aura of World of Warcraft frightened the Black Dragon herd. Then, the herd stopped eating grass and turned around to run. Can you clearly see which one it is? Yes, sir. The Horse King is the black horse with a purplish-red mark on its forehead. It has the longest mane and is also the tallest. I feel that it is more spirited than Sir's Black Dragon. Upon hearing this, Liz said, "First, we will clearly examine the surrounding terrain. After the herd relaxes, we will encircle and capture them. I will personally tame the Horse King." The Black Dragon herd was already like a turtle in a jar, so there was no need to be too nervous. This location was roughly a bit south of the central part of the island. The northern slope of the highest hill was the grazing pasture of the Black Dragon herd. The range of the pasture was very large, stretching from one hill to another, including the valley between the mountains. It was a grassland with sparse trees. This is a natural pasture. I found a total of 4 kinds of high-quality pasture. Sir, please take a look. Marcus was very familiar with the pasture. This is Lamus chinensis, which is most suitable for grazing sheep. There are not many of them, but they are very nutritious. This is needle grass, which is the favorite food of horses, but the needle grass here is a little weak. This is alfalfa, which has no sprite worms, so it can't grow well. This is ice grass, which is a good pasture. Unfortunately, it is not growing well and the plant is short. The pasture on Black Horse Island definitely had the potential to become a top pasture with a rich variety of pasture. However, the land was barren and there was a lack of sprite worms to take care of it, resulting in the general poor growth of the pasture. This was probably the reason why there were only 37 Black Dragon horses. The pasture could not support more wild horses. The team continued to explore. They went all the way to the northeast to the center of Black Horse Island, climbed the highest hill, and barely got a glimpse of the whole island. The outline of the oval island was lacking in undulations. The highest hill was at their feet, which was estimated to be no more than 300 meters above sea level. In addition, there were 3 low hills. The 4 hills, distributed in the shape of a mouth, formed the topography of the island. First, mark them as Lamus chinensis Hill, Needle Grass Hill, Alfalfa Hill, and the Ice Grass Hill at our feet. List irresponsibly named the 4 hills. Standing at the top of the Ice Grass Hill, one could see that on the hillside of Needle Grass Hill, the Black Dragon horses had begun to graze leisurely again. The grassland stretched from Lamus chinensis Hill to Needle Grass Hill and half of Alfalfa Hill. On the hillside from Alfalfa Hill to Ice Grass Hill, the number of miscellaneous trees began to increase and the pasture gradually decreased. Cut down all the miscellaneous trees here, cultivate the pasture, and expand the size of the Black Dragon horses. Liz had already seen the gorgeous picture of the Black Dragon horses galloping back and forth between the 4 hills in the future. Of course, now was not the time for imagination. He and Marcus discussed how to tame the Horse King. There was not much technical content. It was to divide the retainer knight and sailors they brought into 4 teams and approach the Black Dragon horses from 4 directions, causing the Black Dragon horses to be at a loss of advance and retreat, panicking and messing up their formation. Then, List directly rushed over, mounted the Horse King, and began taming it. For an elite Earth Knight, taming a horse was very easy. Therefore, an hour later, List put his arm around the Horse King's neck, letting the Horse King jump and gallop all over the hillside. The man and the horse wrestled. He was even in the mood to hum a song. Spin, jump. I closed my eyes. Another half an hour passed. The Horse King didn't have the slightest intention of stopping and was still running all over the hillside. Compared to when it tamed Black Dragon, the Horse King was clearly stronger and more patient. But in the end, it still submitted. After an unknown amount of time, the Horse King lowered its proud head, letting List ride and drive it. Congratulations, sir, for obtaining an even more spirited mount. It is indeed stronger and taller than Black Dragon. List took the handkerchief handed over by Thomas, wiped his sweat, and threw it back. With an unconcealable excitement in his tone, He touched the Horse King's neck. "Do you see the reddish-purple hair on its forehead? Doesn't it look like lightning?" Liszt faintly smiled. Chapter 190. This chapter is Talented Men of Rivers and Mountains. Lightning was a stallion. There was no doubt about it. In order to know how old it was, Liszt forcibly opened its mouth and let Marcus observe its teeth. A normal stallion has 40 teeth, including 12 incisors for canines and 24 molars. A mare has no canines, only 36 teeth. To determine the age of a horse, it mainly depends on the incisors. Incisors are divided into incisors, intermediate teeth, and caries. The incisors are the front incisors in the center, the caries are the incisors at the edge, and the intermediate teeth are the incisors between the incisors and the caries. Incisors are divided into two stages. One is the milk stage, which is what we call the milk teeth, and the other is the permanent teeth. While observing, Marcus also explained to Liszt and the Squire Knight, not forgetting to shoulder the responsibilities of a tutor and an instructor of the night team. Within 1 year of age, the milk incisors grow in 1 to 2 weeks, the milk intermediate teeth grow in 3 to 6 weeks, and the milk caries grow in 6 to 8 months. At the age of 2.5, the milk incisors fall off and the permanent incisors grow. At the age of 3, the upper and lower permanent incisors touch, which is said to be fully grown. At the age of 3.5, the milk intermediate teeth fall off and the permanent intermediate teeth grow. At the age of 4, the permanent middle teeth are fully grown. At the age of 4.5, the milk caries fall off and the permanent teeth grow. At the age of 5, the permanent teeth are fully grown. He pointed to Lightning's completely closed teeth and said, "Lightning's incisors are neatly in contact, which are permanent teeth, so its age is over 5 years old. After the age of 5, we need to judge its age according to the black pit of the teeth, which is the pit in the middle of the teeth. According to the depth of the black pit and the time of erasure, the age of a horse can be determined from 6 to 11 years old. After the black pit completely disappeared, according to the shape, size, and position of the teeth marks, the age of a horse can be determined from 13 to 18 years old. If Lightning is an ordinary warhorse, its age should be about 8 years old." Marcus made his own judgment after the observation. However, he continued, many excellent warhorses are mixed-blooded world of Warcraft stallions and dragon horses. There is a certain degree of error in estimating their age through their teeth. Using Lightning's world of Warcraft stallion bloodline to correct for the error, she may already be 10 years old, or even older. The development of World of Warcraft stallions and dragon horses was not much different from normal horses, but the strengthening of their bloodline made their teeth better and more resistant to wear and tear. The speed at which the black nest was being worn away and the speed at which the teeth marks were vanishing would also slow down. Marcus didn't know that Black Dragon had dragon bloodline, so he speculated that Lightning should be 10 years old. Liszt, on the other hand, made a correction based on the dragon stallion and deduced that Lightning should be 12 years old. It was a fine horse in its prime. Liszt looked at the horses lingering not far away, unwilling to leave the Horse King, and said with a smile, "I'll ride Lightning to get used to it. Teacher Marcus, you should also choose a group of black dragon horses to tame." Marcus took a deep breath and knelt on one knee. "Thank you, sir." The value of a black dragon, as far as he knew, probably exceeded 100 gold coins. This was a huge gift. He had no choice but to treat it seriously. If he knew that it was a dragon horse and retained its breeding ability, its value could be calculated in dragon coins. Even if he sold it, it would still be worth 1,000 gold coins. Perhaps he would prostrate himself in worship. After receiving Marcus's kowtow, Liszt said indifferently, "The Black Dragon bloodline is very strong. Before going to the battlefield, they will be raised as stallions for the time being to continue expanding the herd." That's how it should be. Marcus was deeply convinced. Then, with trembling legs, he walked over to the black dragon herd. He wanted to tame a black dragon that belonged to him. The retainer knight looked at Marcus enviously. They didn't have the qualifications to ride such a precious horse and could only ride an ordinary horse. A cool breeze blew gently, and the sun was warm. Riding on a stable horse, List let lightning wander on its own. His thoughts had already jumped to another matter. Black Dragon is the name of my mount in the castle. I originally thought that there would only be one, so I named it Black because of its pure black body. Now that there are so many Black Dragon horses, is Black Dragon the name of a horse or a herd of horses? In the end, his feelings for Black Dragon prevailed. Black Dragon will be the name of a single horse, just like my Fiery Dragon. The current herd should have a new breed name. Sapphire Grand Duke has blue-blooded horses, so maybe I can have a herd of black-blooded horses? Everyone was a dragon horse, and no one was more noble than the other. But it seems that blue-blooded horses aren't blue. Forget it, black-blooded horses are still very nice to hear. Just like Fergana horses, it sounds like a name that a top-notch horse should have. Thus, the pure Black Dragon horse had an official name. Black Dragon still belonged to Black Dragon, but it was foreseeable that in the future, Black Dragon's status would decline significantly and give way to List's new mount, Horse King Lightning. Strictly speaking, Lightning was no longer pure black. On its forehead, there was a small tuft of purple-red hair. It was the size of a palm and was shaped like the lightning symbol of the Flash. It added a lot of prestige. He didn't know if it was because Lightning's intelligence was very high. After it was tamed by List, it seemed to know that Trembling Woods and List had a close relationship, so its fear of Trembling Woods quickly disappeared. Even if Dosen was beside it, opening its mouth and letting out a dull roar, it did not run away. It even raised its head and snorted disdainfully at Dosen. Lightning was at least 4 meters tall, while Dosen was only 9 meters, which was double the difference. He had to raise his head to look at Lightning. This undoubtedly made Dosen feel humiliated. Coupled with the resentment of being robbed of its master, it made Dosen want to bite the black horse to death. But it couldn't. It was like it wanted to bite Black Dragon to death, but it didn't dare to. Woof woof. Poochie. A dog barked and a snorted. No one knew what they were communicating. The first expedition to Black Horse Island ended after the taming of Horse King Lightning. List and Marcus, each with a black blood horse, rushed back to the rock pier with the knight and sailors. Unexpectedly, the horses also followed them to the pier. They were still attached to their horse king. The black blood horse herd has been found. The voyage mission is complete. We will set off tomorrow. List ordered, from now on, the development of Black Horse Island will be included in the agenda. First, we need to establish a temporary stronghold here. While there is still some time before dark, we need to clean up the vicinity of the pier. Yes, sir. Once the temporary stronghold is built, the sailors and their families will first be moved to Black Horse Island to prevent the news of Black Horse Island from leaking. Once the news of the Black Blood Horse is leaked, it is likely to attract covetous eyes. When they discover the value of the Black Blood Horse, they will definitely spare no effort to snatch it. Only when List makes a contribution and can obtain the Viscount and fief will it be the time for Black Horse Island to come out. At this stage, Black Horse Island will slowly develop with the secret funding of Flower Town. Time flies like a white steed, and the night passed in a flash. Early the next morning, riding Lightning around the pier, List reluctantly let Lightning return to the horse herd. He was not going to take the Black Blood Horse back. The same was true for Marcus, who released his tamed Black Fiend. Chapter 191. This chapter is Fantasy Reaper 11, Reward Added. The waves were sparkling and the breeze was blowing. Today was not a windy day, so the flowers did not sail fast. The sailors in the oar room had begun to slide the oars to speed up the voyage. The servant brought a stool, and List sat on the bow deck, enjoying the sea view. Dosen was lying on the side of the ship. A voyage had made him overcome his fear of the sea. From the beginning, he was afraid of the deep blue water, but now he was staring at the sea in a daze. His ability to adapt was amazing. In the near future, he was about to become a qualified sailor, no, a water dog. Dogs generally know how to swim, and the flying dust dog is also a dog. List must let him learn how to swim. The waves rolled. The flowers were far away from Black Horse Island. There were sporadic small islands around Black Horse Island. Perhaps they cannot be called islands. They could barely be regarded as coral reefs. A wave could directly submerge the coral reefs. Some of the reefs were covered with trees, and some were pure sand and stones. The scenery is really beautiful. Blue sea, blue sky, seagulls, sandy beaches, but there are no fragrant coconut trees. If it was on Earth, Black Horse Island and the nearby reefs could definitely be developed into a resort no less than the Maldives. Unfortunately, the Grand Duchy of Sapphire is an island country. The nobles here are islanders, and they are not in the mood to enjoy the beach scenery. The nobles were busy robbing the Eagle Kingdom. The Count and Levis, I don't know how much wealth they have robbed, and I don't know when the Tulip fleet will return. There should be no shortage of serfs this time, and the return speed should be fast. Thinking of 1,000 serfs, List's heart was burning. There were more than 2,500 serfs in the territory, and there was not enough manpower to farm in Flower Town. Now, there was Black Horse Island to develop, and there was a shortage of manpower. The lack of people made many of his ideas unachievable. He could only slowly farm and slowly save some gold coins. He could not get rich overnight. I need to maintain my potions. With the amount of potions I'm using now, it's not enough to just rely on the flame mushroom. It's still not enough, even with the fast-growing magic thorns. I have to use the earnings from the Black Tulip to buy more potions. There are not many businesses that can make money without the magic potion. The seafood business will last for another 6 months, and it is estimated that it will have to be withdrawn. The nobles with a little brain are secretly catching seafood in secret, but they are not selling it to the public. I don't know when the flower wine will be brewed. At present, the new money-making project is the flower soap produced by the Soap Workshop. Burnell Poison Egg was seizing the time to reform the process, prepare for mass production, and put it on the market as soon as possible. List hoped that the flower soap could monopolize the Coral Island market within 3 months, and then cooperate with Tulip Castle or Beer Castle to open up the Outer Island market. With the quality and cost of the flower soap, it could become a pillar industry in Flower Town. First, I'll make money with the flower soap, and then I'll buy serfs. When I have a large number of serfs, I'll be able to start more industries, make more money, and then buy more serfs. After I'm fully armed, I'll go to the battlefield and be awarded with meritorious service. He began to fantasize. Viscount, Earl, Marquis, Duke, and then riding a dragon. But after imagining the scene of riding a dragon, along with the rocking of the flowers, everything suddenly seemed dull. Sure enough, poverty has limited my imagination. The meaning of life, the goal of struggle, besides riding a dragon, there is no other pursuit. At this moment, there was a sailor's loud exclamation in his ear. Leviathan! It's Leviathan! Oh my God, we've encountered a sea monster. We're going to be eaten by Leviathan, huh? Woof woof. It's over. Leviathan? List didn't react at first. He didn't know what Leviathan was. But then, there was Costo's roar in his ear. Don't panic, do your job. It's not a Leviathan, it's just a big sea beast. They're friendly and never hurt ships sailing at sea. Perhaps Costo's reassurance worked. The sailors no longer panicked. Thomas also calmed down from his panic and ran to List. Master, we've encountered a sea beast. I saw it. List got up and pacified Dosen, whose fur was standing on end and barking, and looked at the sea on the left side of the flowers. There, a sea beast waving its huge pectoral fins was leaping from the sea. Its huge body rolled on the surface of the sea before falling back into the water, setting off wild waves. It was some kind of whale, and he recognized it at a glance. It was a sea beast, not a sea monster. The magic I did not observe any signs of magic. The sea beast was similar to the humpback whale he had seen in Man and Nature. If its huge pectoral fins were to hit the flowers, it was estimated that the flowers would be smashed to pieces. However, it did not approach the flowers. It was just not far away, moving side by side with the flowers. Sir! Marcus hurriedly ran over, followed by the retainer knight. They all felt the danger and came to protect List. but it was not dangerous. List quickly restrained his nervousness in front of the behemoth. On the surface, he pointed to the humpback whale. It's very majestic, very magnificent. It's rare to see a sea beast up close. Teacher Marcus, everyone, sit down and enjoy together. Sir, do you want to hide in the cabin first? Marcus worriedly asked. It's a sea beast. Don't worry, Captain Costo has told us about sea beasts. They're very friendly. List smiled, calm and at ease. The retainer knight looked at him with admiration. He was indeed worthy of being a lord favored by the glory of the Night Knight, the embodiment of courage. After listening to List's comfort, Marcus bowed, relaxed his body, and no longer made a fuss. Together with List, they enjoyed the rare spectacle, walking with the giant beast. However, it was only a moment before the humpback whale seemed to lose interest in the flowers, or perhaps it just came up to the surface to take a breath. With another roll on the surface, its huge body sank into the sea and disappeared completely. After the waves, the sea was calm again. Dosen's erect dog fur relaxed, and his pair of corium or dog eyes stared at the sea, seemingly still looking for the humpback whale. Captain Costo left the captain's cabin and hurried to the deck, breaking the atmosphere still immersed in the humpback whale's huge figure. Sir Lord, that was a sea beast just now. They're often seen sailing at sea. In fact, they are very friendly, rarely attacking ships, and even escorting ships. I know, it really is not hostile. List agreed with Costo's statement. He asked, I know that the behemoths that appear at sea are called sea beasts, but what is Leviathan? Just now, he clearly heard many sailors shouting for Leviathan. Chapter 192. This chapter is My Horse Feeds the Sheep. On land, there are magical beasts that can release magic, which are called World of Warcraft. In the ocean, there are also magical sea animals that can release magic, which are called sea monsters. There are no marine experts to classify the animals in the sea, and naturally, there is no classification of whales and sharks. The huge animals encountered by ships at sea are called sea monsters. The Leviathan is obviously not a sea monster. Legend has it that the Leviathan is a sea snake that can release stormy magic and sweep away passing ships. The appearance of the humpback whale provided some topics of conversation during the boring voyage. In the afternoon, the flowers returned smoothly and docked at the crew dock. It took a full 3.5 days to go back and forth. When he returned to the castle, Gort, who had heard the news, introduced him to two strangers. My lord, Randy Kettle and Russell Scale are both Earth Knights, and they want to follow you. Gort said, Randy is the son of Sir Lydon, and Russell graduated from the Knight Academy. They are both very young, but have good knight talent and initiative. Sir Lydon was the captain of the Knight of Tulip Castle, who often guarded Levis. Randy was the son of Lydon, which meant that he was an illegitimate child. Otherwise, the introduction would have been Lydon's second son, third son, or something like that. As for Russell, he graduated from the Knight Academy. There was no introduction of his family background, so he was obviously a civilian. Randy, Russell, since you are both Earth Knights, why didn't you join the Lord's Knight teams and follow the Count to the battlefield? List looked at the two with interest. He didn't expect someone to join him so soon. Randy was a handsome young man, and he replied politely, I am a superfluous person at home, not valued, and not qualified to participate in the Knight team. He did not hide his identity as an illegitimate child and openly admitted it. Russell then replied, The Earl chose a knight to go to the battlefield, and I was eliminated because I had just broken through and my combat effectiveness was not up to standard. But please rest assured, Lord Baron, I will train hard and master my own battle or a secret book. I will strive to become a qualified battlefield knight. He spoke confidently, and his attitude was decent. At first impression, List felt that both of them were good, but he would not easily recruit followers. He immediately said, A knight chooses to follow the Lord loyally, and the Lord also chooses a knight to fight side by side. I hope that in the following period of time, we can establish a friendship. We are willing to accept Lord Baron's inspection. Randy and Russell replied together. List nodded. Since you are following me as knight, I will not send you to the administrative office. You will be my assistants, assisting Marcus in training the children and youths in the territory. He directly threw Randy and Russell to Marcus. It was not his style. The superior only needed to work, and the inferior needed to work. After dealing with the Earth Knight's followers, Gort reported again, My lord, I also received a letter in the last 2 days. The letter was written by Zambrata. Do you remember him? He was Litton's former tutor. He was punished by the Earl for condoning Litton's beating of innocent civilians and lost his title. List remembered after Gort's reminder. Zambrata was also a Lord Knight. He was hired as Litton's tutor a few years ago and had been in and out of Tulip Castle a lot. It wasn't a big deal that Litton was beating up a commoner, but the reason why the Count was angry was that he didn't learn good things at such a young age. So Zambrata was stripped of his title. Zambrata wrote to you. What did he say? He just talked about the past, but his thoughts were revealed between the lines. He may want to come to Flower Town and hope to get an official job. Flower Town was indeed short of officials, but List would not easily recruit people. Do you know anything about him? I haven't had much contact with him, and I don't know much about his character, but I know that he has a very outstanding talent. Well, he has traveled around the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and 7 vassal countries, and he can always say a lot of amazing customs and rare things. Traveled around 8 countries? List heard this, and his heart moved. Is that so? Advisor Gort, continue to keep in touch with him. If he is willing to come to Flower Town to work, you will be responsible for receiving him if it is inconvenient for me. After all, Zambrata was directly deprived of his title by the Earl. Deprivation of title was a major crime, second only to exile among the punishments for the aristocracy. As the Earl's son, he could not ignore the Earl's will and recruit such a person as an official of his own territory. He could only be appointed in private, and he could get the information himself to protect his father's face. In one day, he would have 3 more subordinates. List was in a good mood. So many people were optimistic about him, indicating that his promotion to Viscount was the general trend. By the way, Advisor Gort, you and Teacher Marcus should cooperate more and build the temporary stronghold on Black Horse Island as soon as possible. Don't delay. Please rest assured that I will always put the important matter of Black Horse Island in the first place. At the same time, keep the news of Black Horse Island in your heart. Understand? Understood. After dealing with official business, Carter came to report on the affairs of the castle. Master, during the 3 days you were away, Mrs. Morrison and I have selected 20 children, 10 boys, and 10 girls. They have begun their internship in the castle, mainly working in the afternoon, training during the day, and staying with host families at night. After Carter finished speaking, he asked, Do you want to meet him? It just so happens that I have nothing to do, so let them come over and meet me. By the way, tell me their names. List said casually. In fact, he mainly wanted to know what kind of little girl Maggie was specifically mentioned in the smoke mission. The young servants who were practicing downstairs, led by Carter, lined up one by one and appeared in front of him. My name is Polymai, my lord. Soon, List met Maggie in the study. My name is Maggie, master. The little girl who spoke was short among her peers, very cute, with a few freckles on her face. Looking at her appearance, even if she grew up in the future, she would probably be an ordinary girl. Such appearance conditions did not meet the secretary standards pursued by List. It was inevitable that he was a little disappointed, but at the same time, he was also sure that since it was not a secretary, there must be other clues on Maggie's body that would be involved in the follow-up mission of the smoke mission. So he smiled gently. I hope you have a good life in the castle, little Maggie. Yes, I have a very good life here, master. Maggie's little face was red and a little shy. Maybe she had never seen such a handsome aristocratic lord, and he smiled so gently. She waited for Carter to tell her that she could leave. Chapter 193. Master is a real aristocrat. In the kitchen maid, Irene Four Fingers, proudly said to Maggie, who followed her as an intern. "Little Maggie, you will like this castle. I have never seen a nobleman more noble than Master. His nobility is innate, and we can only look up to him." "Yes, Sister Irene." Maggie nodded seriously. In fact, Irene spoke too fast, and she only understood part of the content, which was the nobility of Master. "Don't add too much flour, otherwise the pineapple bun won't taste good." Irene stopped Maggie from pouring the flour. "Our kitchen has many new kinds of bread, which were jointly invented by Mrs. Abby and Boss Rayner. Master likes these new kinds of bread." She suddenly leaned close to Maggie's ear and said, "Every day, Mrs. Abby makes a variety of bread flavors. If Master doesn't eat it, we can eat some." Maggie was surprised. "Ah, Master, do servants eat good bread?" Her serpentine stuttered, and she had to add gestures to make Irene understand. "Umph, you will understand Master's kindness and generosity later." In fact, Maggie understood in the evening because she was given a small piece of pineapple bun while eating in the kitchen. In the evening, the Lord invited 2 guests to a banquet and asked the kitchen to make a lot of bread. In the end, there was a lot left, so each servant could get a small piece. Compared with black bread, this characteristic white bread was simply the best food Maggie had ever eaten in her life. "Little maids, little servants, keep up. Be careful of snakes on the road when it's dark." The patrol shouted. They were responsible for sending the young intern servants back to their respective host families at night. Maggie followed behind the patrol, feeling very at ease. She knew that the snakes were just to scare the children. Recalling the delicious pineapple bun, she kept whispering in her heart, "Praise Master." Then, she suddenly remembered that she had eaten the pineapple bun, but forgot to leave it for Mrs. Harriet's family. Although boarding was forced by the town's administrative office, Mrs. Harriet's family treated her very well. Should I form a mother-daughter contract with Mrs. Harriet? She thought about the things she had been struggling with for several days. As a 9-year-old girl, her parents were killed by mercenaries. Other than being sad, she naturally longed for a new family. But in her heart, she still worried about her sister, who was 10 years older than her, tall, and had curly hair. She always remembered what her sister said when she left home. "Maggie, wait for me to come back. I will teach you magic, and we will be magicians together, magicians who can release fireballs." At that time, my sister was 15 years old, and her parents forced her to marry a crippled old man in the village. The next day, she left home without hesitation. Her sister had always been her most admired idol. "Maggie, you're back." Before she knew it, Maggie had returned to the town, and the kind Mrs. Harriet was standing at the door to greet her. "Oh yes, Mrs. Harriet, you needn't. Every day. It's okay, come in first." At night, the moon formed a crescent in the sky. Maggie lay in bed, thinking about Mrs. Harriet's kindness to her, thinking about the delicious food in the castle. Somehow, the appearance of her sister in her childhood suddenly became vague and distant, and some decisions quietly emerged in her mind. If Mrs. Harriet asks me again, I will say yes to her. She is like my mother. The morning air was fresh, and Liszt greedily inhaled 2 more mouthfuls. Then he began his daily training and walking the dog, and then went on to inspect his territory. He didn't like to make friends. Several aristocrats in North Valley City sent him birthday banquets, aristocratic gatherings, and so on. At most, he sent people to send some gifts, but he didn't go in person. This was a low-key way. After all, the heir of Coral Island was his brother Levis. It was not convenient for him to be too close to other aristocrats. Black Dragon held its head high and stepped on the gravel road. It still didn't know that its status was facing collapse. Perhaps when Black Horse Island came out, it would understand that the king was the king, whether it was yesterday or tomorrow. Your uncle will always be your uncle. The town lacks stonemasons to carve and polish stones. Otherwise, the roads in the town could be paved with slabs, and the roads in the castle could also be paved with slabs. Accompanying Liszt was Isaiah, who reported the progress of various projects in Flower Town in his capacity as an administrative officer. The stone road is a big project, and the town's manpower should be used in more urgent ways. "Yes, sir." At present, The autumn harvest has been completed, and the roads and houses have been completed. I am arranging for the serfs to concentrate on reclaiming the wastelands of the settlements and waiting for the next batch of 1,000 serfs to be transported. These farmlands can be taken over smoothly and sown directly next spring. How is the expansion of the flame mushroom shed going? It has been expanded by 20 mu, and the total area has reached 50 mu. The serfs are skilled in growing flame mushrooms, and the current output has doubled compared to the beginning. It is expected that in a month, the new shed will double the output again. Isaiah replied happily, but he also raised his doubts. Sir, is the income from the flame mushroom processing workshop directly credited to the castle without going through the town's administrative office? No, but the tax and welfare issues of the shiitake serfs will be uniformly arranged by the town's administrative office and then subsidized by the castle. The flame mushroom magic potion has entered List's stomach, and no one is yet to find out that he has become an elite Earth Knight. Isaiah did not ask any more questions. When it comes to magic potions, it is normal for the Lord to not want others to intervene. The group unknowingly came to the Garden of Thorns. The Thorns worm's stalk has grown into a 4-meter-high thorny tree with luxuriant branches and leaves, very eye-catching. 2/3 of the surrounding clusters are fast-growing magic thorns, and the remaining 1/3 are fast-growing iron thorns. Only a small area is left for ordinary fast-growing thorns as a memento. It is unknown if there are new mutated thorns born. Without waiting for List to ask, Isaiah said, "My lord, the Garden of Thorns originally had 180 acres of land. With the birth of Ella, I have circled 800 acres of land for the expansion of the Garden of Thorns. According to the current ratio, 1/3 is fast-growing iron thorns, and 1/3 is fast-growing magic thorns." He then pointed in the direction of the Thorns Ridge. The fast-growing thorns and poison thorns have been transplanted to the edge of the Thorns Ridge. The number of serfs is insufficient. At present, there are only 50 serfs responsible for transplanting the thorns. I have calculated their workload. About 1/3 of the thorns can be transplanted before winter. Don't worry about the spiky brambles and poison brambles. Plant as many as you can. With the iron brambles and magic brambles, List no longer cared about the spiky brambles and poison brambles, especially the thorns. They are of no use at all and can only prevent the invasion of chickens, ducks, and geese. Chapter 194. Whoa. After patrolling the territory, List saw Ella teasing Dosen. This lively and active elf liked to fly inside and outside the castle. It had a very overbearing temper. Whoever dared to block its way, it would beat them with its fist. It could also sow seeds. This should be regarded as a kind of wood or natural magic which could quickly accelerate the germination of seeds and then entangle people. It seemed to be a fast-growing thorny thorn. The huge wooden thorns could stab people to death. Of course, it had never stabbed people. List forbade it to sow seeds at will. This magic looked terrible, but it could only deal with ordinary people. A knight with combat energy could easily use it to destroy the germination of seeds. Therefore, the combat power of the elf was generally very weak, almost non-existent. Even ordinary people could kill it when it was unprepared. But Ella did not feel that it was weak. Its overbearing temper had never changed. Then, of course, it met another grumpy guy, Dosen. Dosen was very curious when he saw Ella for the first time. He wanted to stick out his tongue and lick the smooth and crystal Ella. He did not want to provoke Ella. With a wave of his hand, he sowed the seeds, which shocked Dosen. He did not know how to use the magic in his body. He could only watch the thorns bind him and make him scream. But after all, he was an intermediate world of Warcraft with rough skin and thick flesh. After the pain, there were no injuries left. After getting rid of the thorns, he chased Ella around. A little fellow and a big fellow had formed a grudge, and as soon as they met, they would tear each other apart. There was no possibility of peaceful coexistence. A few days later, Dosen was the first to admit defeat. His magic could not hurt Ella, and he could not fly. He could only be kite by Ella. Of course, it was also possible to let Ella go. He knew that Ella and List had a good relationship. However, Ella did not let him go. She always teased him. She sowed a handful of seeds and urged them to sprout. She gave Dosen the art of binding. When List came back, he saw that Ella once again touched Dosen, and Dosen was covered with thorns. The thorns quickly sprouted, growing around Dosen's body, and soon dyed the big black dog into a big green dog. Dosen did not react at all. It only barked weakly at List. Woof, woof. Jayla, stop. List glared at the thorn sprite, and it reluctantly stopped summoning the thorns and landed on List's head. He yawned and decided to sleep. List pulled Jia down and handed her to Thomas. Put her in a jade box and send her to the worm room to sleep. Wow. Ella did not want to. List stared at it again and communicated with it telepathically, letting it understand that resistance will be beaten. At this time, the thorn sprite laid down in the jade box and prepared to sleep. Sprites spend most of their time sleeping. After all, their body is a worm stalk. She pulled off the thorns. Dosen lay on the ground aggrievedly, expressing his pity to List. An intermediate world of Warcraft can't even beat a sprite. It's a waste. List kicked it lightly. Let's go and complain to your wife. I'll take you to the kennel first. Trembling Woods successfully regained his liveliness after working hard in the kennel. But List was a little regretful. The kennel keeper, old Defoe, shook his head and said, Sir Lord, I'm afraid that Trembling Woods doesn't have the ability to make these female wolf dogs pregnant. According to normal mating situations, several female dogs are in heat and can easily conceive puppies. But there is no movement at all. Forget it, take care of them. Ordinary low-level World of Warcraft can generally mate with the same species of wild beasts. Probably at the intermediate World of Warcraft, there are more bloodline mutations and reproductive isolation has been produced. At the very least, Trembling Woods should have formed reproductive isolation with the wolf dog. Fortunately, there is Stupid Woman. Seeing Dosen and Stupid Woman together, List's regret quickly turned into expectation, looking forward to the future army of dogs. I just don't know if the offspring of Dosen and Stupid Woman will be intermediate or low-level World of Warcraft. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered that since he came to Flower Town, the town has entered the breeding season. After the town's civilian life settled down, more and more people chose to make little people. Stupid Woman was pregnant, the cow was pregnant, Fire Dragon was pregnant, the fruit-stealing monkey was pregnant. Gort's lover Freya was getting bigger and bigger, and he heard that Marcus was also busy fighting with his wife. It seemed that he was the only one still single. He shook his head. List stopped thinking and continued to tame Stupid Woman, tempting her to obey his instructions with dried meat. In the study, the crystal light was bright. There were several night novels on the table, and List was casually flipping through them, recording something on a piece of thick bass paper from time to time. There was a knock on the door. Carter came in with a cup of milk tea. Master, Mrs. Morrison brewed milk tea. I put it on the table for you. List did not look up and continued to write and draw. Okay, Mr. Burnell wants to report to you on the progress of the flower soap. Invite him in. A moment later, Burnell was led into the study by Carter. He knew that List did not like nonsense, so after a salute, he said directly, My lord, I have completed the transformation process of the flower soap and can be put into mass production. At the current speed of the soap workshop, with a sufficient supply of raw materials, we can produce 50 pieces of flower soap a day. What are you waiting for? Starting tomorrow, full production will begin immediately. After sending Burnell away, List called Sherlock of the Thorns Caravan. Have you tried the flower soap of the soap workshop? Not yet, my lord. The effect is very good. You can try it once and then summarize its benefits. I will give you a batch of flower soap. You will carry the flower soap and give it to all the nobles in North Valley City for free so that they can understand the benefits of the flower soap. Then, you and Harpagon will work together to develop the sales plan for the flower soap. My lord, please rest assured that Sherlock knows what to do. List took a sip of the second cup of milk tea. I have high hopes for the flower soap. I hope you can open up the market as soon as possible and completely squeeze out ordinary soap until you monopolize the soap market on Coral Island. Sherlock hesitated and wanted to say something. List motioned him to speak. My lord, the soap business has always been the main industry of Baron Henderson of Snakespeare City. The sale of the flower soap is bound to impact Baron Henderson. Do you want to give him a heads up? If List remembered correctly, Baron Henderson had already gone to the battlefield with the Count. However, even if the other party did not go to the battlefield, List did not have to take care of the other party at all. He was the son of the Count and did business by legitimate means. No one dared to say much nonsense. If Baron Henderson went bankrupt because of this, it would be because of his poor ability to manage his territory. List could not be blamed for it. It was strange that List was not afraid. If he dared to come, List would dare to let Dosen go. Of course, leaving no way out was a bit too much. Chapter 195. This chapter is *GGQ*. Thank you for the updates. Hit with a stick, then give a carrot. List did not exert much effort to do this. The world had vast resources, but the resources that could be controlled were limited and needed to be competed for. On the Coral Island, if List did not compete for resources and channels, he would not be able to develop. Benevolence was for the common people to hear. Plundering resources was the essence of aristocracy. Obviously, the current List was very comfortable with aristocratic identity and rules of conduct. After reminding Sherlock, he put the matter aside and no longer paid attention to it. He had mithril, crystals, jade, and black pearls. Any one of them could be exchanged for a lot of gold coins. With gold coins in hand, the world was mine. There was no need to focus on one or two small businesses. Carter took the empty cup of milk tea and closed the door. The study was completely quiet. The light of the 3 crystal lamps converged, and the room was as bright as day. He opened the night novel and continued his writing until Carter knocked on the door again, reminding him that it was late at night. I'm going to rest, Mr. Carter. You should also rest early. Good night. Good night, master. List shook the thick bass paper on the table. There was a thick stack of serpentines written on the paper. Closing the night novel and putting it back on the bookshelf, he sorted out the paper he had written on. Looking at the densely packed characters written with a goose feather pen, he felt a sense of accomplishment. As a visitor from civilized world, he was in a cultural and historical desert, and he always felt that something was missing. Therefore, he was going to write a truly great book himself. He had the idea of writing a great book on sociology before, but he had not put it into action. Now he really started writing. Of course, he was not going to write a sociological book like Das Kapital. He intended to compile a chronicle of history based on the history and customs of various countries involved in the night novel. Confucius revised the major events recorded by the historian of the state of Lu into the Confucian classic Spring and Autumn Annals, which influenced China's values for thousands of years. He himself had become a saint of a generation. Whether he was defeated or revived, he had become one of the symbols of China's culture. After riding a dragon, List felt that he had to have a bigger dream. The Dragon Knight would only live for 100 years. After his death, he would rely on the dragon blessing for a few more generations. After that, his body and reputation would be destroyed. Once it was written into the Spring and Autumn Annals, it would be able to influence the world for thousands of years to come. Of course, the Spring and Autumn Annals was based on historical records, so List could not copy it. There was no concept of history here, not even a single history book. Based on the content of the knight's novel, he compiled history books. It was more like he was writing Homer's epic. The Homeric epics, for the most part, are adapted by Homer from myths, folklore, and street songs, but this does not prevent them from being touted as the greatest work of Greek civilization. It was as if he was flattering the official history. Perhaps after a few years, List and his dragon would disappear into thin air. The world had developed greatly and experienced all kinds of changes. There would also be people who would treat the history book he was writing now as real history. Inventing history? That was what List did, and he did it with great feeling, as if he was pointing a deer at a horse. It's a pity that there is too little information. Even if I copy the Knight's novel and make up stories, I can't fill in much of the historical gaps. I'm afraid this book will be my lifetime series. He even suspected that the book he wrote could only maintain its popularity for 3 minutes. After all, making up stories, no, recording history was very brain-consuming. Now this book doesn't have a name yet. I have to think of a name that can be passed down through the ages. In fact, it would be best to call it the Dragonlance Chronicles. The dragon and the knight's lance are very much in line with the characteristics of this world. List pondered. It was a pity that a magic shooter named Odom Truth had written a storybook called the Dragonlance Chronicles, The Dragon of Autumn. That book recorded the species of dragons and had nothing to do with history. So in his mind, names such as Dragon History, Elf Dragon History, Dragon and Elf Chronicles, Dragon Rider Chronicles, Knight Chronicles, and so on emerged. But they were all rejected, until another name came to mind. The Dragon Fights in the Wild. He chewed on these 4 words and felt very emotional. Confucius revised the historical materials of the state of Lu, and because the historical materials were divided into 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, it was named the Spring and Autumn Annals. In this world, dragon slayers often occur, and the battles between countries are dominated by dragons. Dragon Battles in the Wild. Such a title had a very charming style. Swish, swish, swish. Lifting the quill pen, he wrote the title of the book directly on the thick bass paper. After writing, he put all the thick bass paper into the gem space to prevent it from decaying over the years. The white paper was not ready to be developed yet, and the thick bass paper would not be kept for long. After all, this history book was a lifetime series. He resisted the ambition to continue inventing history. He got up and stretched and left the study. Just a few days after Liszt was obsessed with making history. Under the leadership of Burnell, the soap workshop was producing flour soap at full capacity every day. Soap and soap had been forgotten in the corner. Expensive soap powder and cheap pig pancreas were constantly refined, mixed, and pressed into pieces of pink and fragrant flour soap. The finished flour soap was quickly sent to the Thorns caravan. Sherlock was a very thoughtful businessman. Old Grandette had become an official, and Harpagon had taken over the huge flour caravan. Only he was still in the Thorns caravan. He was not willing to fall behind, so he spent a lot of effort on selling flour soap, trying to become famous. Let the Lord see his ability. To this end, he specially invited a carver from the North Valley City, an advanced profession of carpenter, responsible for carving exquisite patterns on wood. He asked the carver to carve a tulip on the front of the soap, and then engraved flour soap in serpentines. On the back, there was a line of small serpentines, Flour Town's specialty soap, the work of soap master Burnell. Then he also specially asked the town's carpenter shop to make a soap box containing the flour soap, with a black tulip painted on it, and the name of the soap. With such a decoration, the grade of the flour soap immediately rose several levels. In this way, the flour soap is not only a piece of soap, but also a product that represents status. I believe the nobles will like it. Sherlock presented the beautifully packaged flour soap to Liszt for inspection. Unsurprisingly, it received very high praise from Liszt. The Lord also called him a natural businessman. Excitement surrounded Sherlock. He could not wait to take this batch of exquisite flour soap and visit the nobles of North Valley City under the banner of Liszt. Chapter 196. This chapter is titled Crippling Feather of Death. Soap is a standard for aristocrats, but there are differences in the degree of importance. Fastidious aristocrats like Liszt can't do without soap. Unfastidious aristocrats don't care about soap at all. Gelta is obviously an unfastidious aristocrat, judging from the fact that his hair is almost greasy. After accepting the flour soap, he just opened the box and looked at it. He asked his housekeeper to take the soap to the bathroom, and then went hunting on horseback. Time flew by, and it was night. Gelta did not go back to the castle for dinner. He went drinking with the knight. His wife did not come back for dinner either. The couple were used to being outside. It was not until the moon rose that his wife withdrew from the aristocratic society and yawned back to the castle. Is the master back yet? The master hasn't come back yet, madam. All he knows is to drink outside all day. Forget it, Lia. Help me with the bath. The madam complained and ordered the maid to help her prepare the bath water. A moment later, she went into the bathroom. But soon she shouted again, Lia, damn it, where's my soap? Lia ran in a panic. Madam, the soap is in the wooden box on your left, she said, holding up the wooden box with the black tulip, opened the lid, and revealed the pink flower soap inside. When did you change the soap? The madam frowned, her tone revealing anger. She was used to using the kind of soap with a rough surface and pinched soap powder. It was the first time she saw this kind of soap, and she felt uncomfortable. Most importantly, without her permission, she had replaced the item she liked to use. Lia quickly explained, It's the master. The master received a new type of soap from Flower Town today, so he replaced it with this kind of flower soap. Sent from Flower Town? The madam was stunned, picked up the flower soap, and a handsome face that made women jealous appeared in her mind. The town of Baron List, that young man, always likes to tinker with something new. Okay, you go down. Lia, who left the bathroom, breathed a long sigh of relief. In the bathtub, the steam of hot water lingered. Holding the flower soap, the lady did not know what to think, and her eyes gradually blurred. She dipped the flower soap in water and began to apply it to her body. She only felt that the soap, which should have a rough friction feeling, was extremely smooth, and there were a lot of bubbles directly. When women take a bath, they like the foam. She unconsciously reached out and touched her skin with the flower soap. She was over 40 years old, and her skin was gradually loose, and her pores began to expand. But at this moment, under the lubrication of the flower soap, it was as delicate as a baby. It attracted her to keep stroking and rubbing on his skin. This feeling was exceptionally wonderful, and the bubbles that rose up added a lot of charm to the atmosphere. She didn't know how many times she had rubbed it, but she began to rinse the bubbles away with water. His skin was clean and clean. Candles were lit in the bathroom. The light wasn't too bright, but she could still see that her skin was fairer than usual. In particular, the feeling of cleanliness was something that couldn't be seen in the past. It was like using soap in the past, only to clean the surface. Now, with the flower soap, the deepest part of the skin is cleaned. I've never felt so comfortable before. She held a small piece of flower soap, and the more she looked at it, the more she liked it. It's much better than soap. I like this feeling. She used to take a bath in half an hour. This time, she asked the maid to add hot water twice and wash for a whole hour. When she washed her body and wrung out her hair, even a maid who put on her pajamas felt different. Madam, you look a lot younger tonight. It's so beautiful. It was hard to say whether the madam was beautiful or not, but when Liat touched the madam's skin, she felt tight. It used to be loose, but today it became tight. The contrast was quite strong. The madam was in a good mood. It's amazing, isn't it, Lia? It's hard to believe that a piece of flower soap made me feel young again. Is this flower soap really so magical? Of course it's magical, just like List in Flower Town, full of magic. Seafood, intermediate world of Warcraft, thorn sprites, scrambled eggs and egg soup, and all kinds of bread. As many nobles say, Flower Town is a place blessed by the glory of the night. Lia had followed Madame to the Flower Town and had tasted the new food. The Flower Town is indeed a different place. After combing her hair, the Madame touched her face, admired it in the crystal mirror for a moment, and then got up and left the bathroom. She called the housekeeper and said, "Remember to let the master bathe with flower soap when he comes back." "Yes, madam." Gulta came back late, still drunk, and took a bath with the help of the manservant. The servant used the flower soap for him according to the madam's instructions. However, he did not have the patience to wash himself well with the flower soap. He just hurriedly wiped himself a few times and flushed. Entering the bedroom, he saw the madam holding a thick bast paper bill, checking the income of the town's manor. He felt as if he was in a trance. His old and ugly wife seemed to give him an illusion of radiance tonight. He shook his head to get rid of the illusion. "I'll see you during the day. Go to bed early." He lay in bed, reminded her, and then glanced at his wife's arm, which looked much more white and tender. He couldn't help but reach out and touch it. In an instant, the original impression of relaxation was replaced by a tight touch in his hand, and he couldn't help but make a strange "oh" sound. His body seemed to be touched. Perhaps the alcohol had played a role, but he had a long-lost libido. The hand also climbed up the already crooked mountain peak. "I'll go to sleep after I see it. What's wrong?" The madam was a little surprised by the sudden attack on her chest. Today was not the day when taxes had to be paid every month. Nothing. Gelta said nothing, but his body did not stop and directly pressed down on his wife. Despite feeling strange, the madam did not push her husband away, but threw away the thick bast paper and began to respond to Gelta's initiative. This kind of initiative seen, with the passage of time, is almost rare. A few minutes later, everything was calm. Gelta rolled over and lay on the bed. He was so tired that he gasped for air and fell into a deep sleep. Beside him, the madam breathed a long sigh of relief and covered her husband with a quilt. Then, taking advantage of the aftermath that had not calmed down, she fiddled with it for a while to solve her worries and troubles. After calming down, she touched her tightened skin, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. The bathroom has to be stocked with flower soap. She turned and blew out the candle. Chapter 197. This chapter is Xianxia. My lord, the response to the flower soap is very strong. Many nobles have offered to buy it. Sherlock often travels between North Valley City and Flower Town. As a businessman under list, with the birth of the Thorn Sprite, his status has risen, and he is now a heavyweight in the business world of North Valley City. When he got the feedback, he reported it to List. Merchants were good at reading people's expressions. Sherlock knew that this young dungeon lord might not be interested in power and worldly affairs, but he likes to have all the information and doesn't like anyone blinding his eyes. Therefore, he always looked for opportunities to report to List. It seems that the flower soap has brewed a wave of good momentum, so let's do it. I look forward to seeing the flower soap dominate the soap market on Coral Island. As you wish, my lord, Sherlock replied loudly. Sherlock is willing to devote all his strength to the lord's wishes. List looked at Sherlock, who was suspected of flattering him, and was in a good mood. Don't let me down, Mr. Sherlock. Hearing such a title, Sherlock was even more excited. My lord, please rest assured. After leaving the castle, he was full of ambition. He knew that, with the flower soap, he would gain a position in the Lord Heart that was no less than Harpagon's, and might even be on par with old Grandet. I need people to spread the news for me. Spread the reputation of the flower soap to the 6 cities on Coral Island and every small town below. First of all, let the caravans that sell the soap understand that the flower soap can be cheaper but of better quality. Every time they sell flower soap, they can make more profit. Obviously, the flower soap could not be given away in large quantities for free. Sherlock was eager to spread his reputation and unify the market, so he decided to lower the price. Any advertising effect was not as good as letting the seller make more money. What? Flower soap, which is better than scented soap, is only 1 silver coin and 50 copper coins? A traveling merchant shouted in surprise. That's right. If you want to purchase the soap from Baron Henderson, you'll need 1 silver coin and 80 copper coins. You'll only be able to earn 20 copper coins by reselling it. But if you sell the flower soap, you will earn 50 copper coins, which is equivalent to selling 2.5 pieces of soap. You can calculate this account yourself. But is flower soap really that good? The nobles of North Valley City have already used it, and everyone is praising it. You can feel free to ask around. In addition, I have a piece of used flower soap here. I can let you try it once. Of course, the traveling merchant would not believe Sherlock's words, so he fetched some water and tried the flower soap. Super foam, smooth texture, clean effect, and the experience of tightening the skin after use. All let the pedicure merchant understand that flower soap is indeed better than ordinary soap. Replacing scented soap with flower soap will undoubtedly succeed. Sherlock added, if you plan to order, you have to make a decision quickly. The soap workshop in Flower Town has limited output. When the aristocrats are competing for the flour soap. Maybe we will raise its price. The price increase defeated the last hesitation of the pedicure merchant. He gritted his teeth and nodded. So, Captain Sherlock, I want to order 5. No, I want to order 10 pieces of flour soap. With a snap of his fingers, Sherlock wrote down the pedicure merchant's order on thick bass paper. A wise decision. Then he collected the deposit from the pedicure merchant and agreed to deliver the soap in 3 days. He got up and left, holding the thick bast paper tightly in his hand. There were 7 orders written on it, belonging to the 7 pedicure merchants of North Valley City. They mainly operated the trade routes in the small towns around North Valley City. And these 7 pedicure merchants ordered a total of 58 pieces of flour soap. There were also many aristocrats who ordered flour soap directly, bypassing the pedicure merchants. For example, the butler of Baron Gelta ordered 8 pieces of flour soap from him. Captain Sherlock, we have a perfect start. Flour soap will become a luxury pursued by the aristocracy. They will not be able to live without flour soap in the future, the deputy said cheerfully. Sherlock smiled reservedly. According to the usage of soap, North Valley City can sell 300 pieces of soap a month. Snake Spear City, Gravel City, Elm City, and White Birch City are about the same, adding up to 1,500 pieces of soap. Coral City has the most aristocrats, lord, knight, and knight, as well as those rich freedmen, who use at least 2,000 pieces of soap a month. In other words, flour soap will unify the soap market. On Coral Island, 3,500 pieces of soap can be sold a month, plus at least 300 pieces can be sold on Beer Island, as well as Flower Town's own use. The monthly shipment is close to 4,000 pieces. 4,000 pieces of flour soap. Sherlock thought of such a picture and couldn't help but grin. 1 piece of flour soap, 1 silver coin plus 50 copper coins. That's a full. He couldn't figure it out. He simply counted his fingers and finally came up with a monthly sales of 6,000 silver coins. The cost of flour soap is only 40 copper coins, which means that he can earn 4,400 silver coins a month. With the unification of the flour soap market, the price can be raised to 1 silver coin plus 80 copper coins, which is the original wholesale price of the soap. As for the cost, as long as Baron Henderson is squeezed out, the price of soap powder can be further reduced. He roughly estimated that it could be compressed to 30 copper coins. The net profit of 1 flour soap is 1 silver coin plus 50 copper coins, and the total monthly profit reaches 60 gold coins. He can earn 2 gold coins a day. Compared to the seafood business at its peak, with a net profit of nearly 4 gold coins a day, the flour soap is slightly worse, but the labor and material costs of this business are lower. Moreover, the flour soap business is led by me. Whether it is the Thorns Caravan or the Flour Caravan, they must cooperate with me. With this confidence, Sherlock met Harpagon, who had rushed over from Coral City, and discussed with him how to unify the Coral Islands market. But Sherlock never thought that Harpagon would also come prepared. The little Kerchief Island fellow squinted at him. Sherlock, your vision is too narrow. Unifying the Coral Island market is not a skill. With the advantages of the flour soap, it doesn't take much action to slowly eliminate ordinary soap. I think we should look to the outer islands and civilians. Outer islands? Civilians? Sherlock was stunned. The flour soap can be made into a specialty of Coral Island and sold to the outer islands with the help of Tulip Castle and Beer Castle. At the same time, I asked Burnell about the flour soap. But by reducing the amount of materials, we can make less effective ordinary soap and supply it to civilians at a low cost. Harpagon smiled proudly and gave Sherlock a provocative look. I have reported to the Lord, and the Lord supports my ideas and plans. A strike. Chapter 198. Harpagon is much bolder than Sherlock. He is more far-sighted and has a fighting spirit. After Captain Costo becomes proficient in sailing, I intend to let Harpagon preside over the sea trade. Castle study at night. List and Butler Carter each had a glass of red wine, slowly tasting it and chatting about the past, present, and future. Carter's hair was a lot grayer, but his spirit was much better than when he first arrived in Flower Town. Master, isn't it too big of a step to carry out cross-sea trade now? Now I'm just using the foreign trade channels of Tulip Castle and Beer Castle to build channels belonging to Flower Town. I'm not in a hurry to take over these channels. List smiled slightly. Flower Town is only temporary. In the near future, I will have my own city or island. He took a sip of red wine and went on to say, I can't always be sheltered under the wings of the family. Father may not mind, but Levis and Lytton will always have something to say. It turns out that your eyes have seen more. Master, please forgive my short-sightedness. Seeing far is one thing, and doing well in the present is another. I need you to remind me often, Mr. Carter. The master and servant flattered each other, and the atmosphere was harmonious. A moment later, the topic turned to flower soap. Carter was filled with emotion. I was very surprised to hear your conversation with Mr. Harpagon. I didn't expect flower soap to be so popular and occupy such a huge market. Popularity is to be expected, Liz said calmly. In fact, the technical content of flower soap is not great, and the decontamination effect is not heaven-defying. However, the addition of certain substances in pig pancreas and plant ash does give flower soap a lot of texture, lubrication, foam, and a skin-tightening effect. It is enough to completely defeat soap with average decontamination effect. Accustomed to ordinary soap bathing, there will be a huge contrast when it comes to flower soap. When washed clean, the whole person will naturally glow with a new brilliance. For the nobles, this is enough to make them abandon soap and switch to flower soap. As for the use of flower soap, it can also arouse the husband's sexual interest, which only Madame Gerda knows. It is estimated that no one else understands. Naturally, under the deliberate publicity of the flower caravan, the reputation of the flower soap began to spread from North Valley City to the entire Coral Island. Coral City, in particular, has always been a fashion vein. The cost of the flower soap was not low, and it was impossible to give every aristocrat a trial. Instead of using Sherlock's method of casting a wide net, Harpagon placed it precisely. Miss Shirley, this is my lord, Sir Baron List. He asked me to give you a gift, 2 pieces of Flower Town's own flower soap. It's better than scented soap and more in line with your stunning beauty and noble temperament. Ah, did Big Brother List give it to me? Thank you. Shirley happily received the gift and saw that there was a thick bass paper attached to it. On the thick bass paper were serpentines written by List himself. Dear little Shirley, I have a lot of things to do in Flower Town and can't come to Coral City to see you. I can only give you 2 pieces of flower soap. May beauty always be with you. Yours, Brother List. Dear Madam, Harpagon greets you. Harpagon, captain of the flower caravan, did List send you? Madam Penelope received Harpagon. Lord Baron List misses you very much. He sent me to bring you 2 pieces of Flower Town's flower soap. I hope you like it. Harpagon said respectfully. Lord Baron said that if you like it, you can always send someone to tell the caravan that the flower soap will be supplied to you free of charge. Specialty flower soap? It's a kind of soap? Madame Penelope was not a little girl like Shirley. Her eyes moved, and she understood everything. This boy is getting more and more shrewd. No wonder he looks like Melissa. This shrewdness is worthy of being the grandson of Marquis Merlin. Harpagon smiled awkwardly and did not answer. He did not dare to evaluate a noble or his lord. Madame Penelope said, Well, I accept the gift. If they're really good, I will put in a good word for him. At least my old face knows a lot of people. Once again, Harpagon will take his leave. The flower soap was undoubtedly completing its impact on the soap market. This was a big deal for Sherlock and Harpagon, but for List, it was just a way to make money and give advice to his subordinates. Now he had a new task. Just this afternoon, the smoke changed. Task completed, reward 5 rotten bones. It was not hard to guess that Marcus and others on Black Horse Island had already built a temporary stronghold on the island and settled 100 serfs. A new task was also born. Task: raising horses requires a large number and variety of pasture. Black Horse Island is not suitable for growing more pasture at present. Why not cultivate corn grass in Flower Town to increase nutrition for the black-blooded horse herd? Please cultivate 100 acres of corn grass. Reward: a sprite worm. The task of rewarding sprite worms must be completed. Every sprite worm is a treasure. But when List saw the content of the task, he frowned deeply. He called the barley settlement's steward. Gajiel, how many acres of corn grass are currently planted in the barley settlement? Sir Lord, there are a total of 30 acres of corn grass. Is the corn grass now cultivated? Can it germinate and safely survive the winter? Gajiel hesitated. Sir Lord, Gajiel has not taken care of the corn grass in the winter and does not know if it can survive the winter. So how many corn grass seeds have you harvested? The seeds have been handed in to the administrative office, about a few 100 pounds. Much of the corn grass is directly cut down for grazing, and only a small part is used for seeds. List looked at the weather outside. It was almost late autumn, and the weather was no longer warm. Such a climate was not suitable for farming crops, but the smoke task was placed here. Otherwise, it would be difficult to ensure the birth of a sprite worm. He was sure that this was a corn grass sprite worm, but it was hard to say whether it could be bred or not. It depended on the progress of the task. No matter how difficult it was, he had to do it. He immediately ordered, immediately reclaim 70 acres of land and expand the corn grass field to 100 acres. Gajiel, hurry up. Yes, Sir Lord. Gajiel will arrange for everyone to reclaim the new land. The task began. On the other side, List also took the time to explore the barley settlement's corn grass field. He constantly released magic eyes in an attempt to find signs of a sprite worm being bred. As long as he found signs of a sprite worm, even if the task failed, he was confident that he could breed a sprite worm. Unfortunately, he did not see any signs of magic power. The corn grass field was filled with ordinary corn grass, and there was nothing special about it. He sighed and comforted himself. I hope the corn grass can germinate in this weather. Let me complete the task first. The next day, the flower returned. Marcus brought him a piece of news regarding the task reward. Chapter 199. What kind of bone do you think it is? List asked curiously. The height of an ordinary person is about 1.7 meters, that is to say, the diameter of each of the 5 bones is greater than 1.7 meters. One can imagine how long they would be and how big the skeleton would be. Marcus unconsciously turned his head and looked at the door, as if to make sure that no one was eavesdropping behind the door, and then replied in a measured tone, I think it might be dragon bones. Dragon bones. List was shocked, then suppressed his surprise and excitement, and asked his doubts, if it is dragon bones. Is there any mineral deposits in that valley? It seems that no mineral deposits were found. We dug the bones a few meters deep until we were blocked by rocks. We did not find metal-like, nor did we find crystals or gems. Really? Dragons can infect their surroundings. If it is the bones of a metal dragon or gem dragon, I am afraid that the whole island will become a mine. Since it has not become a mine, it means that the bones should not be the remains of a metal dragon or gem dragon. Marcus guessed, maybe it is the bones of an elemental dragon. An elemental dragon is also unlikely. I talked to Elkson, and he read a book written by an archmage. It recorded that the magic of an elemental dragon is long-lasting and will also infect its surroundings. The roaring wind valley of the Empire of Light was formed after the Battle of the Wind Dragon, and the wind is still roaring today. After several discussions, the species of the bones during their lifetime has ruled out the possibility of dragons. Could it be Super Dragon World of Warcraft? Marcus raised another possibility. I have only heard of Advanced Dragon World of Warcraft, but no matter how big Advanced World of Warcraft is, it is impossible for a bone to be 1.7 meters in diameter. So I guess it is Super Dragon World of Warcraft, but it seems to be a legendary species. World of Warcraft is divided into low, intermediate, advanced, and super. In fact, the division between Advanced World of Warcraft and Super Warcraft is very vague. Because there are not many individuals observed, and there is no standard whether to distinguish between advanced and super by combat power or by body shape. Basically, humans are not willing to provoke the powerful world of Warcraft, and, according to rumors, there was not a single world of Warcraft in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. The continent was boundless, and World of Warcraft would only appear in Night Tales. The Earl had invaded the Eagle Kingdom every year and had seen many things, but he had never heard of Super Warcraft in the Eagle Kingdom, not to mention the Super Dragon-type magical beasts. At the level of World of Warcraft, the bloodline was infinitely powerful. Being infected by a dragon was only a theoretical possibility. After discussing for a long time, the two of them still couldn't come up with any clues. They couldn't guess what kind of creature had left those 5 huge bones behind. Tomorrow, I will personally go to Black Horse Island to see what is so wonderful about these 5 bones. He left as soon as he said he would. He instructed the town's officials to urge the Barley Settlement's serfs to cultivate corngrass. Liz took a boat directly, took Dosin, and went to Black Horse Island with Marcus. After sailing for half a day, they reached their destination without a hitch. A simple dock had been built, made of wood suspended on the sea, and it was a little shaky when walking on it. As for Dosin, he had to take a wooden boat. His overweight physique was not something the floating dock could bear. After landing, he saw a row of brand-new wooden houses standing no more than 100 meters from the dock. There were serfs clearing gravel and weeds around. It was a very simple stronghold, but this meant that List had gained a firm foothold on Black Horse Island. Without delay, while there was still time, he went straight to the valley where the 5 big bones were found. On the way, he happened to meet the Black Blood Horse herd. The Horse King was a little unfamiliar with List, but when List rode it, he quickly became familiar with it. Carrying List, he sprinted and turned back along the way. On the way, Marcus reported to him on his inspection of Black Horse Island these days. There is no World of Warcraft on the island. At least no World of Warcraft has been found so far. There are only some small carnivores and herbivores, and the largest animal is the Black Blood Horse. The vegetation is also very monotonous. There are few trees, and most of them are miscellaneous trees. No one knows this kind of miscellaneous tree, and there are not many branches. He pointed to a tree on the side of the road. This tree was the miscellaneous tree he mentioned. The trunk was very straight, the branches were high, and it was not lush. It had no flowers or fruits, and it did not grow tall. The leaves were slightly yellow, and it seemed to be a deciduous tree. It was ordinary. Marcus continued, there are many weeds on the island. In addition to the pasture grass on the pasture, the rest are common weeds. The Black Blood Horse does not eat these weeds, so getting rid of them is the best choice. Finally, he added, Sir, I am drawing a map of Black Horse Island, but it is not finished yet. Liz suddenly asked, Have you chosen the place to build the castle? Not yet. There are not many defensive terrains on the island. The hills are not high, and the terrain is not steep. It is impossible to build a steep castle like Tulip Castle, which may not even be comparable to the terrain of Beer Castle. I think that if you really want to build a castle, you can only build it on flat ground, thicken the walls, and dig a moat. Not every castle can be backed against a cliff, and most castles are built on flat ground. List was simply concerned. Soon, the group came to the valley where the 5 bones were found under the setting sun. This valley was located between the ice grass mound and the needle grass mound. Because the weeds were deep and the bones were buried deep, it was difficult to find. I was inspecting the terrain while riding the Black Devil, which was how I found these remains and these 5 bones. Marcus patted the Black Devil under him and went to the center of the valley where weeds had been shoveled away. Behind him was a large pit that had just been dug. In the center of the pit, a huge gray-white broken bone was inserted obliquely into the ground. Around it were 4 huge bones with a small section exposed and bone fragments scattered on the ground. It looked like some kind of creature had died here. With the weathering of time, most of the bones had gradually decayed, leaving only these 5 bones still standing, but they should also have decayed. The reward of the smoke mission clearly indicated that these were 5 decayed bones. List dismounted. Approaching the pit, stepping on the rocks at the bottom of the pit, List approached the bones step by step. The closer he got to the bones, the more he felt small, as if he was standing in front of a huge stone pillar. He reached out and touched the surface of the bones, which was as hard as rock. When he knocked on it, he could hear a stone-like sound. List cast magic eyes to observe the 5 bones and the bone fragments on the ground. No traces of magic were found. This bone should have become a fossil, right? But he quickly shook his head. Fossils were integrated with the stone, and this bone, obviously, still had a part exposed. Teacher Marcus, have you examined the bone fragments on the ground? Hard, suitable for making fine bone tools. Marcus responded briefly. Fine bone tools, enough to show the quality of the bones, at least at the low-level World of Warcraft level. Bang, bang, bang. List knocked the bones again. For a time, apart from being shocked, he was left scratching his head. He didn't know what the smoke mission reward of these 5 bones was for. Chapter 200. This chapter is a reward for the leader. Big ears attract wind. At present, there is still a total of 20 chapters owed to the leader. As for other chapters, they will be slowly filled up in Old White's heart. The 5 huge skeletons left behind by the unknown creatures definitely had unusual uses, but List hadn't discovered them yet. He wanted to put the bones into the space gem, but unfortunately, the bones were too big to fit. Besides, they were inserted into the rock and could not be pulled out. Teacher Marcus, remember to arrange for people to dig them out if they can. If they can't, then protect them in place. Understood. In addition, send someone to pick up the bone fragments on the ground and transport them back to Flower Town with the flour. It just so happens that I plan to open a bonesmith shop in Flower Town. Marcus nodded and said, These bone fragments are indeed suitable for making excellent bone tools. With a number of fragments here, the serfs of Flower Town will no longer lack farming tools, and the patrols and insect protection teams can also get 2 more bone weapons. Speaking of bone tools, List suddenly remembered that there was a keel bone in his gem space. According to Costo, the keel bone should be made from the bones of a high-level dragon species in World of Warcraft. Teacher Marcus, do you remember the keel bone? He patted the huge bone and said, The keel bone is said to be the bones of a high-level dragon species in World of Warcraft, but compared to the bones in front of us, there is a world of difference. I think the gap between the super dragon species in World of Warcraft and the high-level dragon species in World of Warcraft should not be so huge. This denied the previous speculation. Marcus obviously also thought of it and frowned. Dragons are denied, and the super dragon species in World of Warcraft is also denied. So what kind of creature left these 5 bones? In a short period of time, there was no answer to this question. As the sun was about to set, the group had to leave the valley and return to the temporary stronghold. There was no need to sleep on the ship at night, and Dosen was dragged far away by List. There was no snoring, and he could rest quietly for the night. But he was lying on a hardwood bed. List did not sleep immediately. He was still thinking about the bones. 5 decayed bones, which means that it's been around for a long time, and that it's a super powerful creature. Apart from dragons, the only other creature that fit this description was the legendary super dragon race in World of Warcraft. According to the classification of meddlesome magical creatures, the super dragon species in World of Warcraft is second only to dragons. In many Night novels, the super dragon race in World of Warcraft frequently appeared, but they have another name, Yalong. All the other low-level dragons in World of Warcraft had the same name, Draconic Beast. There were even some night novels that believed that dragons were also a type of World of Warcraft and forcefully classified them as wyverns. They even forcefully grouped wyverns, lesser dragons, and draconic beasts together and classified them as one species. This undoubtedly belittled the noble bloodline of dragons, so this type of night novel was not popular and belonged to a niche category. List didn't agree either. He wanted to ride a dragon even in his dreams. Telling him that dragons were just a form of World of Warcraft was an insult to his lofty ideals. This kind of night novel should be listed as a banned book. So, it's not a dragon, nor is it a lesser dragon. We're the five bones. The thoughts in his mind were mixed, and all kinds of ideas kept emerging. Then he paused for a moment to analyze whether it was right or wrong. The lesser dragon is World of Warcraft. It's hard to say whether it exists or not. It should be ruled out first. I have ruled out the gem dragon, the metal dragon, and the elemental dragon, but there is still the holy dragon. Could it be the smoke dragon? He suddenly thought of his golden finger, the smoke quest that was linked to fate. He always thought that the smoke quest was the product of the smoke dragon. But he was more inclined to contact the smoke dragon when he was a child, and then was infected by the smoke dragon. But now a new idea arose. If the smoke dragon died, its magic infected me and formed a smoke quest, and it died on Black Horse Island and infected a group of black-blooded horses? The idea could not be said to be illogical and reasonable. But when he thought about it carefully, there were some things that did not conform to common sense. After all, the bones had decayed, and maybe thousands of years had passed. There was no reason for it to suddenly infect a little kid on the neighboring coral island. In the memory of his predecessor, he had not been to other islands except Red Crab Island and Beer Island, not to mention Black Horse Island, which had just been discovered. Moreover, the description of the smoke dragon generally said that it was a cloud of smoke and there was no such thing as bones or flesh. After death, it would probably disappear directly. There was no reason to leave such a skeleton behind. It shouldn't be the smoke dragon, and the invisible dragon doesn't match either. The invisible dragon is very small. Fairy dragon? No, the fairy dragon has an infinite lifespan and can't die. Dust dragon? Emerald dragon? He still couldn't figure it out. After one night, at dawn the next day, he rode lightning again and came to the valley to observe the bones. The serfs who lived on Black Horse Island soon arrived in teams and began to pick up every piece of bone on the ground, packed it, and transported it to the temporary stronghold. Marcus took another team and began to dig up the other 4 bones to see if they could dig them out and see the whole picture of bones. These bones, although not fossilized, did lose part of the nature of bones. Dosen, a fellow who loved to eat bones, had no interest in the bone fragments on the ground. He followed behind List, eyeing the Horse King Lightning covetously, saliva dripping to the ground. The Horse King Lightning was dismissive of Dosen and leisurely gnawed on the grass roots on the ground. Not far away, the black-blooded horses were grazing on the hillside. From time to time, the black-blooded horses raised their heads and looked in the direction of Lightning. They still followed Lightning's lead. "Sir, halfway through the second bone, we encountered a rock layer and couldn't dig any further." Marcus came over and reported. "It seems that there are rocks under the soil of this Black Horse Island." List walked to the new pit, jumped to the bottom of the pit, and stepped on the solid rock. He squatted down and reached out to brush the dirt off the rock, trying to get a closer look at what kind of rock it was. However, he didn't know much about rocks. He just felt that this kind of stone was harder and seemed to have dense holes on it, like bubbles. Bubbles. Suddenly he felt that he remembered something, but he couldn't grasp this inspiration. So he told the serfs who were preparing to dig the third bone, "Expand this pit. I want to see more rocks." He didn't believe that the rock layer would be a whole piece of rock. There must be a fracture, and he could pry open a piece and study it carefully. Sure enough, after the serfs expanded the bare surface of the rock at the bottom of the pit, Liz saw the gaps between the rocks. However, as the bottom of the pit was constantly expanded and the soil was removed, more and more rock surfaces were exposed. He was surprised to find that these rocks were very orderly, like a wash basin-sized hexagon. And there was a high and low distribution between the rocks, like a staircase in a row. Chapter 201. Before Liz crossed over, he was fascinated by an American TV series called Game of Thrones. There was a very magnificent building in it, the Great Wall. With the help of giants, humans built a 300-mile-long, 700-foot-high ice wall. At first, he was very interested in the Great Wall, so he looked up a lot of information and knew that the original shape of the Great Wall was a cliff formed by a basalt pillar in the west of Iceland. Because of this, he learned about the great wonders of nature like the basalt pillar. The Giant's Causeway in Ireland, the Devil's Tower in the United States, the Fingal Cave in Scotland, and the Gezi Mountain Pillar Forest in Nanjing are all typical basalt pillars. It is hard to believe that the neatly arranged stone pillars originated from volcanic eruptions. When a volcano erupts magma, it cools to form basalt with pores and gradually shrinks, and the cracks form a very regular geometric shape. In most cases, it forms a hexagonal shape, as if it has been co-processed. This is a basalt pillar, no doubt about it. With the continuous excavation of the pit, the appearance of the basalt pillar was revealed little by little. The orderly hexagonal stone pillars revealed their true faces one by one. Costo, who was following behind Liszt, suddenly shouted, "I remember now. My lord, I remember now. I've seen this kind of rock on an island." "What island?" "An uninhabited island that I encountered on the voyage to Deep Throat Island. The whole island is densely packed with stone pillars, the shape of which is the same as the stone pillars here." Costo's words supported Liszt's judgment. The rock under his feet was a basalt pillar, geological structure formed by volcanic eruptions. Looking at the huge skeleton again, he suddenly thought of a possibility. He thought silently, maybe my previous judgment was wrong. This is not the wreckage of a dragon. Maybe this is the wreckage of a fire dragon. Wind dragons can form wind-roaring valleys with strong winds all year round. Fire dragons can naturally form volcanoes. If it was a fire dragon that fell here at the last moment of its life, with its magic, it would definitely form a volcanic eruption, and the body of the fire dragon would be engulfed by the volcano. As time passed, perhaps after tens of thousands of years, the magic of the fire dragon gradually dissipated. The volcano died, and the upper layer was gradually weathered or blown by the wind, forming the present Black Horse Island. Black Horse Island does not look like a volcanic island. However, Liszt felt that it was very reasonable. This place might have originally been deep in the sea, but because of the fire dragon's fall, the volcano continued to erupt layer by layer and finally broke through the seawater, revealing the surface of the sea. If I dive down now and spy on the shore-based situation under the seawater of Black Horse Island, it might look like a huge volcano. The exposed Black Horse Island is just part of the crater. You don't say, it really does look a little similar. Ice grass mound, needle grass mound, alfalfa mound, and sheep grass mound are arranged in the shape of a mouth, forming a low-lying valley that fits the structure of a volcanic crater. The location of the bones is between the needle grass mound and the ice grass mound, not far from the crater of the volcano. Perhaps the fire dragon's bones were brought out by the volcanic eruption. Thinking like this, even if the magic eye could not observe the fire attribute magic. Liszt also gradually felt that the fire-attributed aura in his body was becoming restless, as if the fire-attributed mana here was very active. Of course, this was an illusion. After calming down, he did not find this sign, and the restlessness of his aura also calmed down. I think a little too much. After tens of thousands of years of grinding, I am afraid that except for these bones of the fire dragon, everything else has been lost. Dragon. Fire dragon. Liszt stood up, stepped on the basalt pillar, and approached the bones. He reached out and stroked the rough surface of the bones. There were too many complex and unspeakable emotions in his heart that he wanted to vent. I have a destiny with dragons. Invisible dragons, smoke dragons, and fire dragons. Ordinary people rarely see them, but I have encountered them one after another. It seems that I am destined to ride a dragon in this life. Unfortunately, it was not a metal dragon or a gem dragon that fell here, leaving no metal or gem mineral deposits. But thinking about it, if it was a metal dragon or a gem dragon, without volcanic eruptions, Black Horse Island would probably just be a piece of mud at the bottom of the sea. No matter how rich the mineral deposits were, Liszt would not be able to touch them. Everything he saw had a reason. He thought again, the fire dragon fell here. If it was not killed by him, then the existence of the Valley of the Dragon should be ruled out. The Dragon Spear Chronicles. The dragon of late autumn recorded that when a dragon is old, it will fly to the Valley of the Dragon. There was only an ocean here. There was no Valley of the Dragon. At this time, Marcus, who was in charge of supervising the work, put forward an idea. Sir, I'm guessing that since there are 5 bones embedded in these stones, does it mean that there are more bones also embedded in the stones? Is it just that the parts that are exposed to the surface have decayed into pieces? It makes sense. It seems that I have to carefully clean up this. Bone burial ground. List suddenly felt that his brainwave of naming was very stylish. This is called the bone burial ground. If you have free time, you can flatten the surface and see how many bones you can collect. The bones of the fire dragon, even if they have decayed, are still very hard and are excellent materials. The upcoming bone shop does not have to worry about the lack of suitable raw materials. After figuring out the origin of the bones in the bone burial ground, List felt that there was no need to study it any further. So early the next morning, he set off from Black Horse Island under the illumination of the rising red sun. Of course, he brought back a batch of bone fragments. He had to continue to think about what these bones could be used for besides making bone tools. He always felt that it was a huge waste to use dragon bones to make tools for serfs to farm. After returning to Flower Town, he saw Elksun Truth again. The magician came to Flower Town to make the next batch of Valley of Fire magic potions. List had a brainwave and handed him a bone fragment. Mr. Elksun, I recently found a ruin and found a few pieces of bone. Please help me study it and see what kind of creature it belongs to and what kind of use it has. It doesn't matter if the bones have decayed for tens of thousands of years, even if the secret of the dragon bone is exposed. The important thing is to understand its function. Elksun took the bone fragment and nodded. You can rest assured that I will study it when I have free time. In addition, Lord Baron, you asked me to buy a batch of magician's books. I have brought them. There are a total of 56 books. As for the night novels, you can let the caravan buy them. Knowledge. List was eager for it. He wanted to write a chronicle history book of dragons fighting in the wild and needed a lot of plagiarism, a lot of reference materials. Mages who pursued the truth and refused to lie wrote books that were relatively truthful and broad in content, which had high reference value. Thank you very much. I will let Mr. Carter pay for the books as soon as possible. Chapter 202. Magic books are not the same as night novels. Night novels are stories created by fallen nobles in order to earn a living and for a large number of readers, in pursuit of fun, refreshment, and bizarreness. Magic books are very similar to papers, mainly research reports and experimental notes of the magician. Most of the magic books are poorly readable, and some are even upside down and logically confusing. And the printing quality is relatively poor, and even many magic books are circulated in manuscripts. Not many people are willing to buy them, and naturally there is no money to pay publishers to print them. 56 magic books sent by Elksun. 21 of them are manuscripts. The Diary of 18 Kinds of Red Viper Venom Extraction on Red Mamba Island. Sleet Truth. Is this kind of book really worth reading? He looked at the manuscript in his hand and felt that it was a bit of a loss. Such a book cost 2 silver coins. Forget it. I'll just buy an instruction manual on snake venom. After a few pages, he lost patience and stuffed the book into the gem space. He continued to open the next manuscript. Frito's Fireball. A book about how to release fireball and improve the craft of fireball. The author, Fredo Truth, turned out to be a magic apprentice, and the only magic he knew was fireball. The book recorded that in order to expand his fireball, he tried more than 100 casting directions. Eventually, he completed the improvement of fireball, making it possible to rub the fireball with the back of his hand. He called this improvement an epic-making progress and believed that he would promote the advent of the magic age. Unfortunately, this was a second-hand book, and there was another magician's afterthought in the back of the book. The magician left a disdainful sneer. When you advance to a magician, you'll understand that any part of the body can be used as a casting medium. The only difference is that the palm of the hand casts faster. So this book is a negative teaching material? List was quite speechless and threw it directly into the gem space. Looking back and forth, most of the handwritten magic books are more exotic experimental content, which is of little value and is more suitable to be used as a table foot. When he turned to the last manuscript, he suddenly raised his eyebrows. The title of the book was Kennedy's Alchemy Diary. Another alchemy diary. List instantly remembered the shipwrecked treasure he had obtained. There was also an alchemy diary in the chest. It seemed to be called Rudolph's Alchemy Diary. It was also handwritten with serpentines on the cover. It seems like it's also a handwritten magic book. Restraining his emotions, he began to flip through the diary. The author was a magician who had just advanced. He used many methods to guide magic, tried to turn a stone into gold under the influence of magic. For this reason, he even melted the 7 gold coins he had in order to observe the difference between gold coins and stones. In the end, he still couldn't figure out how to turn stones into gold. Therefore, this was also a negative teaching material for continuous failure. Closing the book, List got up directly, went to the Valley of Fire workshop, and found Elksun. Do magicians like to study alchemy? Elksun put down his work and explained, Baron List, the triangle theory is a recognized truth among magicians, so we always hope to find the most direct evidence to prove the truth of this theory. The Midas touch is the best proof. Why? Because the process of turning stone into gold can be broken down into 2 sets of steps. First, the material stone is transformed into spirit with the help of magic, and then the spirit is transformed into material gold with the help of magic. Therefore, turning stone into gold will strictly verify the correctness of the triangle theory, which is one of the ideals that we magicians pursue all our lives. In that case, List felt a little contradictory. Has the Midas touch ever been successful? I don't know, but many magicians believe that there were real alchemists in ancient times who could turn stone into gold. Why do you have to choose to turn stone into gold? If you want to verify the triangle theory, isn't it possible to refine the properties of other items? Elksun smiled. Baron List, your understanding may be off. Alchemy is just a general term, and turning stone into gold is one of the popular ones. Because we magicians need a lot of money to do experiments, we all like to study turning stone into gold and want to get enough wealth. He spread his hands a little helplessly, but it's not that no one has refined other items. It's just that no one has succeeded. When I first became a magician, I chose to study alchemy, but I gave up in the end. List roughly understood what alchemy was all about. Slightly disappointed, List then asked, So, many magicians create an alchemy diary. Yes. Well, you continue to work? I won't bother you anymore. He was just about to go out when he turned around again. Have you studied the bone fragment I gave you? I haven't had time to study it yet. Study it as soon as possible. I'm curious about this kind of fragment. Of course, as long as I have time. He shook the crystal tube in his hand, meaning that he needed to make the Valley of Fire magic potion first. Back in the castle, List sighed in his heart. Because of the decay of Rudolph's Alchemy Diary, the knot in his heart has disappeared. It turns out that magicians like to tinker with alchemy and write alchemy diaries. If it was really refined, it would not be circulated in the form of a manuscript. That magician would become a sacred and inviolable existence in the hearts of all magicians, side by side with the sun. Perhaps the Dragon Knight would fight over him. The knot in his heart dissipated. Although he felt relaxed, it also showed that alchemy was probably just a beautiful imagination. Countless magicians studied alchemy one after another, but ultimately did not get any useful information, which showed the difficulty of alchemy. Getting rich overnight was still a dream. For him, it also meant that the dream was shattered. After a moment of entanglement, he quickly adjusted his mentality. Forget it, I am not a magician. Why would I study alchemy? He threw Kennedy's Alchemy Diary into the gem space. List continued to read the next magic book. He had finished reading the manuscript, and the rest were printed copies. There were 3 possibilities for a printed magic book. One was that the author was rich and printed it at his own expense. The second was that the book was valuable and the magician was willing to buy it. And the third was that the book was interesting and the aristocrats were willing to buy it. Wild Sprite Worm Market Selling Price. Blind Windblade Wolf King. How to Safely Cross the Midoro Mangrove Forest. Highland White Tower. Carrick Truth. These magic books were obviously of much better quality than the manuscript. List picked up one of them, Wild Sprite Worm Market Selling Price, and read it with relish. The magician who wrote the book lived in Steel City, the capital of the Steel Ridge Kingdom. There was a large wild sprite trading market, and the magician went to the market every day to observe the wild sprites. You're tuning into the Eternal Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.